Chapter 2771. Although the black vortex could devour all kinds of divine power, it could even use divine power of various attributes as nourishment to strengthen itself. However, the power of the heaven-mending orb was very special. The black vortex could not devour it. In just an hour, the vortex was filled with sacred white light. As a result, the power of the black vortex was suppressed. Ji Tianqing activated the power of the heaven-mending orb again. He wrapped the black vortex with white light and began to gradually refine it. 15 minutes later, the heaven-mending orb successfully refined a wisp of black light and absorbed it into the heaven-mending orb. Ji Tianqing's eyelids moved, and he thought to himself, "It's done." That's right, he had taken the second step to success. Next, he focused on controlling the heaven-mending orb and continued to refine the black light. As more and more black light was refined by the heaven-mending orb, a black line appeared on the sacred white heaven-mending orb. Yunyao, Jiku, and the others knew that this was a real success. Everyone was relieved. They secretly breathed a sigh of relief and smiled happily. What they had to do was wait patiently. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days passed. 6 days later, half of the black vortex with a radius of 10 feet had been refined by the heaven-mending orb. A quarter of the pure white divine orb had also turned pure black. 12 days later, the black vortex disappeared. All of the engulfing divine power had been refined by the heaven-mending orb. The pure white heaven-mending orb had become half black and half white. In this way, not only did it not destroy the holiness of the heaven-mending orb, it made it even more mysterious. Swoosh! Ji Tianqing ended the spell and put the heaven-mending orb back into his body. Everyone immediately gathered around and began to discuss joyfully. "Great! We finally got the opportunity of the heavenly Tao. Tianqing, how do you feel now? Has your strength increased?" "Master, the engulfing divine power has been refined by your divine orb. How will you use it in the future?" "Old Ji, are you going to use the engulfing divine power to quickly increase your strength? Will there be any danger?" Ji Tianqing waved his hand to silence the crowd. He held Ji Wushuang's little hand and said apologetically, "Wushuang, you were the one who discovered this devouring godly power. Father should have given it to you. However, only the heaven-mending orb could refine it. In the future, only I can use it. You won't blame me, right?" Ji Wushuang wrapped her arms around his neck and shook her head with a smile. "Shuang is more than happy that Father can refine the heavenly Tao's opportunity. How could I blame you? Moreover, the devouring divine power is too special. Only you can refine and control it. If you give it to me, I won't be able to refine it. Instead, I'll be harmed by it." Ji Tianqing's heart was filled with gratification. He pinched her cute little nose and said, "Shuang is still the most sensible. You are indeed Father's intimate little jacket." With that said, he said to everyone, "Divine King Jiulua was harmed because of himself. I will not repeat the same mistake. The devouring godly power had a heaven-defying effect, but it was a double-edged sword that had to be used carefully. I will use it with the help of the heaven-mending orb. It will speed up my growth and not burden me." Everyone finally understood that he had only temporarily stopped using the devouring godly power. If he wanted to use it freely or even control it himself, he would need some time. This matter was over. Ji Tianqing brought everyone and flew upwards to leave the lightning pool. "Alright, everyone has finished transforming. Now it's time to see the outside world." Everyone followed Ji Tianqing. They passed through the endless lightning liquid and flew towards the top of the lightning pool. The lightning pool was very deep. Everyone flew for half an hour and passed through the lightning liquid that was thousands of miles deep before they reached the top of the lightning pool. Swoosh! As everyone left the water surface, countless splashes appeared on the calm lightning pool. The purple lightning liquid exploded into thousands of lightning arcs in the sky, giving off crackling sounds. After a while, everyone flew to 1,000 miles above the lightning pool. Above them was the azure sky. Below them was the surface of the lightning pool, which was thousands of miles in radius. There were majestic mountains in all directions. And on the eastern side of the lightning pool, on the nearest mountain, there were rows upon rows of palaces and houses. Seeing this scene, everyone started to discuss with each other. "Strange, when we were in the lightning pool, it felt like it was boundless and terrifying. Why is it only 1,000 miles in radius after leaving the lightning pool? Maybe the bottom of the lightning pool is very wide and the exit is very small, like a gourd? I don't think so. The lightning pool is formed by the will of the heavenly Tao. How magical is that? It must be that the lightning pool is only 1,000 miles on the outside, but the space inside is very vast. Just like old Ji's heaven mending pearl. It looks only the size of a thumb, but it can actually store the 5 elemental worlds. At this moment, Jika suddenly reminded everyone, be careful and hide yourselves. Do not expose yourself. Ji Wushuang, Qianyu and Black Dragon were all stunned. They did not understand what he meant. Ji Tianqing explained, we are quite lucky. The location of this lightning pool is not too remote. A few hundred miles to the east of the lightning pool, there are immortals living on the mountain peak. If those immortals find out that so many of us have ascended together, they will be extremely shocked. The news will spread quickly and cause unnecessary trouble. White Dragon also nodded and said, from what I know, 7 or 8 people have ascended together. This has never happened before. We really need to hide from the limelight to avoid attracting attention and bringing trouble. Jika added, the immortal realm is too big. There are tens of thousands of races and powerful warriors. This place is not as peaceful as the mortal realm. There are many different powers and only the strong are respected. To put it simply, there were no rules and security in the immortal realm. Battles could happen at any time. Everyone had just ascended to the immortal realm and did not even know where they were. They should not be too conspicuous. Moreover, Ji Tianqing's identity was special. He came here with a deep hatred and wanted to take revenge on the deity king. At this stage, they needed to be stable and develop. After everyone understood this, Ji Tianqing kept them into the 9 Heavens 10 Absolutes Pagoda. Ever since Jiku went through nirvana, he could easily control the God Pagoda. After coming to the immortal realm, the 5 elemental worlds were not restricted by the heavenly Tao. He took out the God Pagoda and carried it with him. At this moment, everyone entered the distorted space of the God Pagoda and started to cultivate. Ji Tianqing moved alone and carried the God Pagoda with him. Of course, he kept the God Pagoda in his body and would not expose it easily. Swoosh! Ji Tianqing flew across the sky at lightning speed and headed east. On a mountain peak 500 miles away, there were dozens of palaces and houses. Clearly, many immortals lived there. He wanted to find out which continent and which region this was. A few seconds later, Ji Tianqing flew to the edge of the lightning pool. A hazy purple light that covered the sky sealed the entire lightning pool. This was the power of the heavenly Tao. One could only leave but not enter. It could protect the lightning pool from being disturbed. Even a deity king could not destroy the purple light, let alone enter the lightning pool. Ji Tianqing passed through the purple light easily and left the lightning pool. However, at this moment, a few balls of 5-colored divine light suddenly lit up on the grassland in front of him. Swoosh! 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 In the blink of an eye, 5 immortals who were close to 10 feet tall and wearing red armor appeared out of thin air. Chapter 2772. Ji Tianqing did not know the divine realm like the back of his hand, but he was not far from it. He could tell at a glance that the 5 tall, burly, and ferocious divine beings before him were divines. The divines referred to divine beings born and raised in the divine realm. To put it simply, they were natives of the divine realm. Compared to the divine beings who ascended from the mortal domain, they had more ancient and powerful bloodlines. Not only were they more talented, but their growth was also faster. They also possessed many unique divine abilities. The 5 divines were dark red all over. Their skin was crystal clear like rubies, and one could vaguely see the golden divine bones within. They had no hair on their bodies. Not only were they bald, but they did not even have eyelashes. Their facial features were sunken, and their eyes were dark gold. They were the Great Yin divines. What a coincidence! I was just telling them about Divine King Zhou Luo and the Great Yin divines, and now I'm meeting them? Could this be the Great Yin divines' territory? Ji Tianqing raised an eyebrow and muttered to himself. At this moment, the 5 Great Yin divines surrounded him. The leader of the Great Yin divines sized him up with a sneer and said in a mocking tone, "We've waited for half a year, and only a small fry ascended from the lower realm. Sigh, the ants of the mortal domain are getting more and more useless. There was a hint of disappointment in his tone, and he looked at Ji Tianqing with contempt. Sensing the other party's hostility, Ji Tianqing frowned and asked expressionlessly, "What are you trying to do? Are you trying to rob me?" The divine realm revered the strong, and there was no law or order to speak of. Such things were very common. Moreover, the 5 great Yin divines were all 5th-level heavenly gods. If they wanted to stop Ji Tianqing, they would have kicked an iron plate. The 5 divines were stunned for a moment before they laughed mockingly. Ha ha ha. Another fellow who's scared out of his wits. The insects of the lower realm were all overlords before they ascended. All of them are very arrogant. Now that they're in the divine realm, they're the lowliest ants. They won't be able to adapt in such a short time. There's no need to talk nonsense with him. Let him wake up and recognize his situation. The leader patted the divine saber on his waist and looked down at Ji Tianqing. He sneered coldly, "Little brat, this is the divine world, the territory of the Bloodfire divine country. It is your honor to be able to ascend to our Bloodflame divine kingdom. However, a small fry from the lower realms like you doesn't have the qualifications to join our Bloodflame divine kingdom's household register. Hand over all the divine artifacts and resources you have on you, then obediently surrender and wait for us to make a trip." Ji Tianqing narrowed his eyes. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Bloodflame divine kingdom. Join the household register? 1,000 years ago, he had never heard of something like a household register in the god realm. The gods who had just ascended to the god realm were also free to come and go as they pleased. Seeing that he was confused, the leader of the Protoss said to the one-eyed Protoss beside him, "Lin Yanshi, explain to him." "Captain, what's there to explain? Just take him down." The one-eyed Protoss grinned. He was too lazy to waste his breath. The captain chuckled and said, "We are under orders to carry out a mission. Of course we have to explain clearly before we take action. Otherwise, if these small fries mistakenly think that we are blocking the road and want to rob them, wouldn't it damage the dignity of the divine kingdom?" "All right." Lin Yanshi nodded helplessly. He stared at Ji Tianqing with his one-eyed Protoss and said arrogantly, "Little brat, we are the Thunder Pool guards of the Blue Mountain City. We are under orders to guard the Thunder Pool. According to the law of the Bloodflame divine country, ascenders must surrender. You have to hand over all the resources and divine artifacts on you. Then we will put the soul fixation spell on you, and you will follow us to the Blue Mountain City's household register. Only when you are registered in the household register will you have a legal identity and become a slave of the Bloodflame divine country. Then the city guards will bring you to the Blue Mountain mine. There, you will be forced to work for 500 years. After you complete the mission, you will regain your freedom and become a lowly commoner of the Blue Mountain City." Lin Yanshi explained in a serious tone. He stared at Ji Tianqing and asked, "Little brat, did you hear that clearly?" Ji Tianqing turned a deaf ear to his words. The situation now was completely different from the divine world thousands of years ago. What household register slaves, 500 years of forced labor and lowly commoners? These were all things that he had never heard of. No matter what, Ji Tianqing would not agree to it. In fact, he thought that it was ridiculous. He stared at the Thunder Pool Guard captain coldly and asked, "Is this the rule of the Bloodflame divine country or the Great Yin Empire?" The Thunder Pool Guard captain's body shook. He frowned and asked, "Little brat, how do you know about the Great Yin Empire? How could a small fry that just ascended from the lower realm know about the Great Yin Empire?" The Thunder Pool Guard captain calmed down and immediately thought of another question. This white-robed little brat in front of him had just ascended to the divine world and actually knew the divine world's common language? Ji Tianqing did not answer. He said coldly again, "The Thunder Pool is formed by the will of the heavens. It does not belong to any divine country or power. The people that ascended from the Thunder Pool also do not belong to any divine country's people." Chapter 2773. Following the Thunder Pool Guard captain's words, the other 4 Thunder Pool Guards all pulled out their swords and sabers, ready to attack. The atmosphere in the field immediately became tense. The 5 Thunder Pool Guards were filled with killing intent, releasing a strong pressure that enveloped Ji Tianqing. If it were other ascenders with only the strength of a true god, they would immediately admit defeat. They would obediently give up their weapons and resources, and obediently go to the Blue Mountain mine to do 500 years of hard labor. But Ji Tianqing did not move without any fear. He stared at the Thunder Pool Guard captain and asked coldly, "Are you sure you want to attack without any room for negotiation?" The Thunder Pool Guard captain laughed coldly. "Now you want to beg for mercy? It's too late. Kneel down and allow yourself to be captured." As he said that, he stepped across the sky, holding his saber and approaching Ji Tianqing. The pressure of an Empyrean god rushed over. Ji Tianqing did not speak, his right hand holding the Burial of Heaven sword, and handed it over to the Thunder Pool Guard captain. Seeing this, the Thunder Pool Guard captain was even more disdainful, his face full of disdain as he laughed coldly. "Pretentious dog, I will peel off your skin and send you to hard labor." After saying that, he was about to reach out and take the Burial of Heaven sword. The other 4 Thunder Pool Guards also revealed a mocking cold smile. But right at this time, Ji Tianqing held the Burial of Heaven sword in his right hand, and suddenly stabbed towards the Thunder Pool Guard captain. Shua! The dazzling golden sword light bloomed, like thunder breaking through the sky. From Ji Tianqing holding the sword to stabbing towards the Thunder Pool Guard captain who was 20 feet away, it only took a quarter of an instant. That sword was extremely ruthless and decisive, and its speed was unbelievably fast. Sometimes the truly powerful sword technique did not lie in the beautiful moves. Pung! Only a muffled sound could be heard. The Burial of Heaven sword instantly pierced through the red helmet, from the forehead of the Thunder Pool Guard captain, into his head. The dark red diamond-shaped divinity in his mind was pierced until it exploded on the spot. One sword kill. The Thunder Pool Guard captain didn't even have time to react, nor did he have time to dodge. He didn't even expect that Ji Tianqing would dare to assassinate him. Even at the moment of his death, the mocking sneer was still frozen on his face. The other 4 Thunder Pool Guards were shocked by Ji Tianqing's ruthlessness and decisiveness. They widened their eyes in horror. In the next moment, the 4 of them regained their senses and immediately brandished their swords and sabers at Ji Tianqing. "Bastard! You actually killed the captain. Damned reptile! You're dead meat. Die without a burial place. Everyone be careful. He's not a true god." The 4 of them roared angrily as they executed their lost techniques and divine abilities to besiege Ji Tianqing. In an instant, Ji Tianqing's figure was engulfed by the flames and 5-colored divine light that blotted out the sky. Ji Tianqing didn't evade at all. Once again, he used his ultimate sword technique and stabbed out 36 times in an instant. Swish! Swish! He turned into a phantom and flickered in the crowd. The bright golden sword light lit up, drifting erratically, and its whereabouts were strange. Bang! 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 With a muffled sound, 2 of the 4 Thunder Pool Guards were instantly killed on the spot. One was hit in the forehead by a sword, and his divinity was destroyed by the Burial of Heaven. The other was hit in the back of the head by a sword. Half of his head was cut off, and his divinity was shattered. The 2 surviving Thunder Pool Guards were sent flying by the sword light. The crimson armor was broken, and there were a few more wounds on the divine body. Blood flowed. The 2 of them fell more than 10 miles away. They were scared out of their wits and hurriedly turned to flee to the distant mountain peak. On that mountain peak, there were dozens of palaces and houses, and a large number of Thunder Pool Guards were stationed there. Help! An ascender resisted and killed Captain Lin. While the 2 of them fled desperately, they didn't forget to shout for help. Time was tight, and the 2 of them didn't have time to send a communication jade slip. What's more, the Thunder Pool Guards camp was just 500 miles away. Swish! In the next moment, Ji Tianqing teleported dozens of miles and caught up with one of the Thunder Pool Guards. Swish! The Burial of Heaven stabbed out fiercely, and like a thunderbolt, it instantly pierced into the back of the Thunder Pool Guard's head. Bang! The violent divine power exploded, blowing the person's head into pieces. A dark red diamond-shaped divinity, along with the blood and brain matter, spilled out and scattered on the grass. Ji Tianqing didn't stop. He teleported another 100 miles and caught up with the last Thunder Pool Guard. Swish! He raised his hand and the sword fell. A bloody hole appeared in the back of the person's head, and his divinity was shattered on the spot. The burly corpse fell from the sky and smashed on the grass with a plop. Ji Tianqing glanced at the corpse and grabbed the spatial ring and broken divinity across the air. Then, he turned and flew to the other 4 corpses to seize the spatial ring and divinity fragments. He was very clear that the situation in the divine realm had changed. It was necessary to have a household registration to move around. And he had just arrived, so he had to accumulate wealth and resources as soon as possible to seize a large number of divinity crystals. Divinity crystals could be used for cultivation, and it was also the common currency in the divine realm. Without divinity crystals, it was difficult to move an inch. Swish! Ji Tianqing had just put away the 5 spatial rings and didn't have time to swallow the divinity fragments. On the mountain peak 500 miles away, dozens of divine lights had already lit up, and they were rushing over as fast as lightning. Obviously, the Thunder Pool guards in the camp were alarmed and were rushing over to support. Ji Tianqing turned around without hesitation and fled in the opposite direction. Burrow! He used the law of earth, and his figure flashed and burrowed into the ground, escaping as fast as lightning. After a short 10 breaths, he had escaped more than 5,000 miles and passed through more than a dozen mountain ranges. But the group of Thunder Pool guards in red armor locked onto his aura and relentlessly chased after him. The distance between the 2 sides was constantly closing, and they were only 300 miles apart. At the latest, dozens of Thunder Pool guards would catch up with Ji Tianqing in 100 breaths. At that time he would definitely be besieged and in danger. Although he had all kinds of trump cards and ultimate skills, his combat strength was valiant. There were also Yunyao, Jiku, and the others who could help at any time. But this was the territory of the Bloodflame Divine Kingdom, and the Great Yin Divine race could be seen everywhere. Once Ji Tianqing was surrounded, he would have to face an endless stream of enemies. Even if he had great divine powers, he would definitely die. The situation was getting more and more critical. Ji Tianqing could only unleash his full strength and use the power of the law of space to teleport thousands of miles away in an instant. Swish! A white light flashed. He crossed a few mountain ranges and appeared in the jungle thousands of miles away. The more than 30 Thunder Pool guards were temporarily shaken off, but they persevered and chased even more desperately. Moreover, they also sent out an emergency message to inform the nearby towns and cities to mobilize a large number of experts to surround and intercept him. Ji Tianqing had guessed this result. In desperation, he could only consume his divine power and teleport continuously in the sky. Swish! 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 Every time the white light flashed, he could teleport 500 miles away. When he was in the mortal world, he could teleport 1,000 miles away every time. Moreover, he could teleport 100 times in a row. But this was the divine realm, which was completely different from the mortal world. An ordinary 6th-level celestial god could only teleport 200 miles at a time. Teleporting 500 miles like him was already an extremely rare genius. Chapter 2774. Ji Tianqing kept running towards the west. 2 days later he had flown more than 10 million miles. He had already left Blue Mountain City, far away from the lightning pool. All the lightning pool guards had been shaken off by him, disappearing without a trace. During this process, he passed by several towns and tribes, but he avoided them in advance. No one discovered him, and he didn't encounter any danger on the way. That evening, when the sun was setting, Ji Tianqing entered a vast mountain range and stopped to rest on a 1,000 feet tall mountain peak. He sat on a millstone at the peak of the 1,000 feet tall mountain. After circulating his energy and adjusting his breathing for a moment, he recovered to normal. If it was an ordinary god, continuously teleporting and flying over 10 million miles like him, it would consume at least half of his divine power. But he was different. His divine power was vigorous and majestic, like the sea. There was also the 5 elements world, which continuously provided him with divine power. Therefore, he was only a little mentally tired, and he would be fine after resting for a while. The sun set, and the surroundings became dark. The world was quiet, and one could vaguely hear the occasional beast roar from the distant mountains. Ji Tianqing ended his meditation and took out a few divine spark fragments. This was the divine spark of the lightning pool guard captain. Even though it was broken into 8 diamond-shaped crystals, it still emitted vigorous divine power. Ji Tianqing held the divine spark fragment in his left hand and silently released the devouring divine power. Suddenly, a black vortex the size of an egg appeared in his palm. The divine spark fragments were all swallowed by the vortex and melted at an extremely fast speed. Not long after, the 8 divine spark fragments were all swallowed, turning into violent divine power that entered the heaven-mending orb. The divine power was purified by the heaven-mending orb, removing all the impurities, leaving only 80% of the divine power. Then the heaven-mending orb swallowed 40% of the divine power. The remaining 40% of the divine power was transferred to Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing's divine power was strengthened, and it quickly grew stronger. Moreover, he circulated his energy and found that the newly fused divine power didn't have any sluggishness or rejection. It perfectly fused with his divine power, without any wastage. It was just like the divine power that he cultivated himself. This result made Ji Tianqing overjoyed. Great! It was the first time I used the devouring divine power. After being purified by the heaven-mending pearl, I was able to fuse it perfectly. In this way, not only can I increase my strength quickly, but there won't be any risks. He hurriedly took out the other 4 quintessence fragments and used the black vortex to devour them one by one. Half an hour later, he had devoured all 4 Godhead fragments. Half of the divine power that had been purified by the heaven-mending orb was refined by him, while the other half was devoured by the heaven-mending orb. He could clearly feel that his strength had increased by 20%. The power of the heaven-mending pearl had also increased slightly. Even though he was still very far from the 7th level of the celestial god realm, this was a perfect start. He believed that before long, he could advance to the 7th level celestial deity realm. When Ji Tianqing finished his cultivation, night had already fallen. He sat on the millstone and looked up at the starry sky. He murmured, "Next, I have to find a way to enter the city. I can't stay in the wilderness forever. I have to familiarize myself with this unfamiliar god realm as soon as possible and search for more clues." As soon as he finished speaking, a cold laugh filled with killing intent came from the night sky 100 miles behind him. "An ant that's going to die for sure, still thinking so much?" This was the voice of a middle-aged man. Cold, sharp like ice shards, making people feel a bone-piercing chill. Ji Tianqing suddenly got up, his right hand gripping the sword of burial of heaven, his eyes looking coldly at the night sky, only to see a streak of crimson-red light suddenly appear in the gloomy sky. Swoosh! 3 dark red divine swords that were more than 10 feet long pierced down from the sky, aiming straight for Ji Tianqing's vital points. Those 3 divine swords were all surrounded by crimson flames, illuminating the night sky within a radius of 100 miles. Before the divine swords arrived, an unparalleled violent sword intent attacked, locking onto Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing executed the Big Dipper step, his figure flickering 3 times in a row, dodging the attacks of the 3 divine swords. Of course, those 3 divine swords all brushed past him. The scorching and violent divine flames were practically about to ignite his white robe and long hair. Bam! 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 Following 3 muffled explosions, the 3 divine swords stabbed into the grassland on the mountain peak loudly, arranged in a triangular formation, and Ji Tianqing was right in the middle of the 3 divine swords. Swoosh! A white light flashed. A middle-aged man more than 10 feet tall descended from the night sky, landing 1,000 feet in front of Ji Tianqing. This person was dark red all over, his facial features sunken, and his eyes sinister. He wore black armor with a dark red wide cloak draped over his shoulders, and a pair of pitch-black, ferocious combat boots on his feet. As soon as he landed, his entire body burst forth with an invisible divine power, enveloping a radius of 100 miles. All of a sudden, this area was sealed by him. There was no wind blowing or grass moving, even the air froze. Ji Tianqing looked over with a cold gaze, glanced at the badge on his chest, and recognized this person's identity. The leader of the Thunder Pool Guards, 9th level celestial deity realm. Your Excellency is not simple. To actually be able to track thousands of miles, Ji Tianqing said expressionlessly. The middle-aged man stared at him like lightning, and said in a deep voice, "This seat is Lin Wuji, Blue Mountain City Guard Qian Hu in charge of the Thunder Pool Guards. In the past 100 years, this seat has seen more than 400 ascenders. Those who dared to resist and escape after killing the Thunder Pool Guards, there were only 3. To be able to escape Blue Mountain City's range, worthy of this seat personally pursuing, only you alone." Lin Wuji's voice was like a great bell, saying with an imposing manner, "You killed 5 Thunder Pool Guards, you're already dead for sure. Before killing you, this seat has a question." Ji Tianqing sneered, "You're going to die soon, why ask so much?" Lin Wuji frowned fiercely, his golden eyes flashing with a cold light, and said with a cold smile, "Ha ha ha. You're very confident. This seat understands ascenders who can successfully enter the divine realm. Which one isn't a formidable character and overlord of a region? It's just a pity that you met this seat. No matter how confident you are, it's hard to escape death." Finished talking, Lin Wuji did not talk nonsense anymore, and asked straightforwardly, "You can kill 5 Thunder Pool Guards, and escape here within 2 days. This shows that you have at least 7th level celestial deity realm strength. But you're an ascender who just stepped out of the lightning pool. It's absolutely impossible to reach 7th level celestial deity realm. There's only one explanation. You're very lucky. Obtaining a heavenly Dao lucky chance in the lightning pool. Hand it over. This seat will spare you from death." Lin Wuji's tone was very certain, and it was filled with a domineering determination to get it. Ji Tianqing raised his brows and said with a ruminating smile, "You're very good, to actually be able to deduce this level of reason. But very sadly, I'm not as lucky as you think. What heavenly Dao lucky chance, I've never heard of it." Ji Tianqing denied flatly, because he borrowed Earth Law and sensed another obscure powerhouse's aura. It was in that deep ravine 200 miles away, and it was very well hidden. Being in a place where danger lurked everywhere, he had to be vigilant. Lin Wuji naturally did not believe and laughed contemptuously as he said, "Ha ha, brat, since you don't admit it, then this seat will kill you, then search for you personally. But this seat still advises you. The surrounding 500 million miles is my blood flame divine kingdom's territory. It's already closed in from all directions. You can't escape even if you grow wings, with absolutely no hope of escaping." Chapter 2775. You talk too much. Ji Tianqing glanced at Lin Wuji and said in a low voice, "Ha ha ha. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish." Lin Wuji laughed maniacally again. With a thought, he manipulated the 2 flaming divine swords and stabbed them at Ji Tianqing as fast as light. The other flaming sword flew into his hand. His left hand shot out a sky full of flames while his right hand waved the sword. In a flash, he was in front of Ji Tianqing. A level 9 celestial god was indeed powerful. However, Ji Tianqing's strength was not any weaker than his celestial dragon tyrant body. Ji Tianqing's body glowed with golden light. In an instant, he turned into a 300-meter-tall giant. His blood was boiling and his divine power was surging. His combat power increased by 6 times in an instant. He swept out his left palm and slapped the 2 flaming swords away. He waved the burial of heaven in his right hand and attacked Lin Wuji violently. The lightning sword light that covered the sky and covered the earth poured down like a torrential rain. Bam! 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 Lin Wuji's sword Dao mystique was completely defeated. After exchanging a few moves, Lin Wuji was forced to retreat continuously, attacking less and defending more. Ji Tianqing was like a ferocious ancient beast, completely suppressing Lin Wuji in his most ferocious and domineering manner. Lin Wuji was shocked and used his mystique in anger, soaring crimson flames. He ignited his divine blood, and divine flames burst out from his body. He also turned into a giant that was hundreds of meters tall. His body was dark red like blood jade, and the golden divine bones inside could be seen clearly. There were thousands of blood flames flowing inside. The 2 of them fought fiercely with all their might, shaking the earth and filling the sky with sparks. After a short 100 breaths, everything within 100 miles was flattened and the mountains in the distance were turned into a sea of fire. The divine power hidden in the dark retreated 150 miles and continued to hide. Soon 15 minutes passed. Lin Wuji was forced to retreat again and again. There were more than 20 wounds on his body, and his god blood spurted out. Ji Tianqing seized the opportunity to slash apart a flaming sword and landed a punch on Lin Wuji. Dragon Elephant Divine Fist. The mountain-sized dragon elephant phantom crashed into Lin Wuji and sent him flying hundreds of miles away, smashing into half a mountain. Lin Wuji crawled up from the rubble. He was already heavily injured, blood spurting out from his 7 orifices. Between his chest and abdomen, there was a large hole where divine blood flowed out. Impossible. This was absolutely impossible. He's just a reptile that just descended. Even if he obtained the heavenly Tao's opportunity, it's impossible for him to be so powerful. Lin Wuji was shocked and enraged at the same time, roaring like a madman. He could not believe that Ji Tianqing, who had just descended for 2 days, already had the strength of a 9th-level heavenly god and severely injured him. Such a miracle was too absurd. But on second thought, Lin Wuji knew that it must have been caused by the heavenly Tao. Exactly what fortuitous encounter of the heavenly Tao did this animal obtain to actually be so formidable? No way. I can't die. I must report this secret to the city lord and the monarch. Thinking of this, Lin Wuji did not continue fighting. After feinting 2 moves, he turned and fled. Just as he pulled away from Ji Tianqing, he could not wait to take out his communication jade slip and send out a message. Whoosh! The dark red jade slip flew into the sky and disappeared in the blink of an eye. After sending out the communication jade slip, Lin Wuji heaved a sigh of relief and continued to teleport away. However, he had just teleported 400 miles and appeared on the peak of a mountain. Suddenly, a shocking saber light slashed over from the side, right above his head. Damn it! He actually has an accomplice? Lin Wuji was shocked and instinctively waved his 2 swords to block that shocking saber light. Kaboom! Amidst the deafening loud noise, the dark green saber light that was thousands of feet long was shattered into pieces. Lin Wuji was also smashed into the mountain. His arms could not stop trembling and he spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. The mountain below his feet was shattered into pieces and more than half of it collapsed. He was buried in the ruins and countless rocks and soil poured down. Before he could fly out, Ji Tianqing had already charged over with his sword. Earth imprisonment. Ji Tianqing used the law of earth and enveloped the collapsed mountain. The mountain within 100 miles was instantly compressed into a 10-mile golden mountain and imprisoned Lin Wuji. Then Ji Tianqing held the sword of burial of heaven with both hands and slashed down from the sky. Sky-splitting sword. The dazzling golden sword light that was thousands of feet long slashed down with rolling thunder. Lin Wuji struggled and raised his 2 swords to block, slashing out dozens of flaming swords. Bang! 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 However, those flaming swords were all shattered into pieces. The sword of burial of heaven was unstoppable and hit Lin Wuji with a boom. Immediately, metal and stone splashed and dark red divine blood splattered. Lin Wuji's giant head was split in half by the sword of burial of heaven. Swoosh! A dark red diamond-shaped godhead flew toward the east at the highest speed possible, along with the blood and minced flesh that filled the sky. However, another blade light slashed from the dark and intercepted Lin Wuji's godhead. Boom! With a muffled sound, the blade light suddenly exploded. Lin Wuji's godhead also flew back, its light much dimmer. Ji Tianqing took the opportunity to swing his sword and slash down with all his strength. Crack! With a crisp explosion, Lin Wuji's godhead was hit by the sword of burial of heaven and exploded into dozens of pieces. Before those pieces fell to the ground, Ji Tianqing waved his hand and captured all the godhead pieces. After putting away the godhead pieces, he turned around and flew away without hesitation, wanting to leave this place. At this moment, a green-robed figure flew out of the darkness and shouted, "Brother, please wait." Ji Tianqing turned a deaf ear to him and teleported to the west. Even though the green-robed figure had helped him kill Lin Wuji, he knew that the green-robed figure had to have some ulterior motives. They didn't know each other, so he didn't need to be entangled with him. Moreover, the battle here was so loud that it could be sensed from thousands of miles away. He had to leave this place as soon as possible, or he would be surrounded by a large group of experts. Swish! With a flash of white light, Ji Tianqing teleported thousands of miles away and disappeared into the darkness. Ah, why don't you trust me at all? The green-robed figure smiled bitterly and quickly teleported to chase after him. After 100 seconds, both of them had teleported tens of thousands of miles away. However, the green-robed figure was getting further and further away from Ji Tianqing. He had no choice but to take out a greenwood compass and use his ultimate skill. Distance shrink. Swish! With a flash of light, the green-robed figure crossed 8,000 miles and appeared on a mountain peak. He held the greenwood compass in his left hand and put his right hand behind his back. He stood in the sky with a smile and looked at the night sky in the west. After 3 short breaths, swish! Ji Tianqing teleported and appeared in front of the green-robed figure. They were thousands of feet apart. The green-robed figure smiled and said, "Brother, why do you have to be so distant? I mean you no harm and I even helped you kill Lin Wuji just now. Why don't you stay for 100 seconds and we can talk?" Chapter 2776. Ji Tianqing stared at the green-robed figure expressionlessly, not speaking. This was a divine race youth with a handsome face and a tall figure. This person was more than 2 meters tall, with a fair complexion, a high nose bridge and a pair of azure blue eyes. A head of dark green hair draped over his shoulders, covering more than half of a pair of pointy ears. Pure white and slender hands had 6 fingers, and the nails were dark green in color. Ji Tianqing thought for a moment. This divine race youth seemed to be from the Azure Forest clan. 10,000 years ago, the Azure Forest clan spread across the 4 continents of the divine realm. They were very prosperous with as many as 10 billion people. Among the myriad races of the divine realm, the Azure Forest clan once ranked in the top 100. As long as there were forests, flowers, and trees, there was a possibility of seeing the Azure Forest clan. But, because of many reasons, the Azure Forest clan started to decline several thousand years ago. 1,000 years ago, the glorious Azure Forest clan declined to the extreme, fading out of the vision of countless divine beings. Ji Tianqing also did not expect that he would actually encounter a Azure Forest clan here. Furthermore, it was a relatively young youth with outstanding talent. His strength reached level 8 celestial deity realm. At the same time that Ji Tianqing sized up the green-robed youth, the other party was also sizing him up. His eyes were filled with praise and admiration. The 2 people were silent. After 10 breaths, the green-robed youth finally clasped his hands and bowed, taking the initiative to speak. "This brother, I'm Zhu Qingcheng. Greetings." Ji Tianqing just nodded slightly and did not report his name. Instead he asked, "Zhu Qingcheng, if I didn't guess wrongly, you should be from the Azure Forest clan. Speak, what faction is behind you? And who are you representing to find me?" Zhu Qingcheng was stunned and asked in disbelief, "Brother, you actually know about the Azure Forest clan?" He was simply stunned. If not for seeing Ji Tianqing step out of the lightning pool with his own eyes, he would have thought that Ji Tianqing had already been in the divine realm for many years. How could an ascender who just entered the divine realm possibly know about the Azure Forest clan? Something strange. There must be something strange. Zhu Qingcheng was filled with shock, becoming even more determined to rope in Ji Tianqing. He bowed to Ji Tianqing again and said, "Brother's insight is like a torch. Qingcheng admires you greatly. Brother, you're right. I'm a citizen of the Qinglin clan. Tonight I passed by this place and coincidentally saw you fighting with Lin Wuji. I felt like an old friend to you at first sight, so I decided to help you. I'm just a wild crane, I don't represent any power." Ji Tianqing glanced at him and sneered, "Huh? Would idle clouds and wild cranes be hiding near the lightning pool and follow me all the way here? Forget it, since you don't have any sincerity, then we have nothing to talk about." With that he turned to leave. Zhu Qingcheng was shocked again. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. Indeed, Ji Tianqing was right. Previously, he had been keeping watch near the lightning pool, secretly following Ji Tianqing here. When he saw Lin Wuji chasing after him, he hid at the side. He waited until the crucial moment to kill Ji Tianqing. He wanted Ji Tianqing to owe him a favor. This way, he would be able to quickly gain Ji Tianqing's trust. But he didn't expect that Ji Tianqing had already seen through all of this. Zhu Qingcheng was shocked and embarrassed. He hurriedly waved his hand and shouted, "Brother, please wait. Please listen to my explanation. I didn't mean to hide it. It's just that the power behind me is somewhat special. You're so wary of me, how would I dare to tell you? As he spoke, his figure flashed and flew in front of Ji Tianxing, blocking his path again. Brother, please give me another chance. I won't hide it anymore. Ji Tianxing looked at him calmly and said, Speak. Zhu Qingcheng tidied his green robe and long hair. He transmitted his voice, Brother, I can tell you my true identity and purpose of coming here. But before that, I would like to ask you to tell me your name. Tianxing. Ji Tianxing said indifferently, Brother Tianxing. Zhu Qingcheng cupped his fists and transmitted his voice, To be honest, I'm from the Origin Returning Association. I'm the External Affairs Emissary of the Origin Returning Association. I'm in charge of rescuing the Ascenders of Blue Mountain City. Other than that, I have another mission, which is to rescue and gather the enemies of the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom. Origin Returning Association? Rescue the Ascenders? Ji Tianxing raised an eyebrow. Zhu Qingcheng nodded and said, That's right. 100 years ago, a lightning pool appeared outside Blue Mountain City. The Bloodfire Divine Kingdom immediately ordered a large number of guards to guard it. Any Ascenders who walked out of the lightning pool were captured by Blue Mountain City and forced to work in the mines. After working for 500 years, they would be given a lowly status in the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom. This law was issued by the Great Yin Empire and had been implemented 800 years ago. Moreover, the citizens of the Great Yin Empire are divided into 3 classes. The first class Great Yin Divine Race has the highest status. The other divine races are the second class. The Ascenders from the lower realms are the third class. They have the lowest status. Ji Tianxing immediately understood what he meant. He continued, Therefore, many divine races resisted this move, especially the Ascenders from the lower realms. Zhu Qingcheng nodded and said, That's right. Over the past 100 years, Blue Mountain City has captured more than 400 Ascenders. Half of them are forced to work in the mines while the other half are resisting fiercely. Many Ascenders risked their lives and tried to escape the mines. Some Ascenders were like you. They resisted as soon as they walked out of the lightning pool. As for the other divine races, not all of them were against it. Many of them muddled through and tried to curry favor with the Great Yin Divine Race so that they could live comfortably. Only a small number of divine races were suppressed and massacred by the Great Yin Divine Race and formed a blood feud. That's why they resisted with all their might. Ji Tianxing nodded slightly and asked, In that case, the Greenwood tribe was massacred and formed a blood feud with the Great Yin Divine Race. Yes, Zhu Qingcheng explained, more than 2,000 years ago, there were thousands of Greenwood tribes and millions of Greenwood tribe members in the Great Yin Empire. But now there's not a single Greenwood tribe. There are less than 100 Greenwood tribe members who are still alive. Ji Tianxing asked again, How many people are there in the Origin Returning Association? Do they all have a blood feud with the Great Yin Divine Race? Zhu Qingcheng nodded. Currently, there are more than 300 of them. More than 60 of them are Ascenders we rescued. The remaining 200 or so are all divine races who were persecuted by the Great Yin Divine Race. Ji Tianxing raised an eyebrow and said, The Origin Returning Association's base is in the Bloodflame Divine Nation? You dare to go against the Great Yin Divine Race with so few of you? I'm afraid Blue Mountain City only needs to send 1,000 city guards to annihilate all of you, right? Zhu Qingcheng was stumped by his words. She smiled bitterly and said, Brother Tianxing, you can't say that. Although there aren't many of us in the Origin Returning Association, we're all elites. Especially our 2 chairmen and 4 great elders, they are all Divine Lord Realm powerhouses. Of course, our current goal isn't to go against the Great Yin Divine Race. Our main goal is to provide a safe haven for those who were persecuted by the Great Yin Divine Race. Chapter 2777. What was a place to settle down? It was just huddling together for warmth. Zhu Qingcheng's words were more tactful, but Ji Tianxing was well aware of it. However, he was not interested in the Origin Returning Association, so he did not ask anymore. He thought to himself, I vaguely remember that the Great Yin Empire is located in the north of the Boundless Heaven continent. There are 18 divine nations under its rule. I didn't expect that we would actually ascend to the boundless heaven continent. To reach the Qiankuan continent, not only do we have to cross 2 continents, but we also have to cross an ocean. Unfortunately, only godly kings are qualified to leave the boundless heaven continent. Ji Tianqing's territory back then was on the Qiankuan continent. He really wanted to go back and see what the divine nation that was loyal to him back then was like now. Were the former disciples, guards, and fans still alive now? However, he was currently on the boundless heaven continent. He had to reach the godly king realm before he could cross the continent and the ocean. He had to stay on the boundless heaven continent for the next few hundred years. At this moment, Zhu Qingqing saw that he was silent and was secretly delighted. He asked a few questions about the Origin Returning Association just now. Now that he's silent, he must be considering whether to join us or not. I definitely can't miss such a special and mysterious genius. I must pull him into the Origin Returning Association. At this thought, Zhu Qingqing said, Brother Tianqing, you've just ascended to the godly realm, so you must be very unfamiliar with this place. Moreover, you killed Lin Wuji and 5 Thunder Pool guards. You're currently wanted by the Bloodfire Divine Nation. No matter where you go, you'll be besieged by the Great Yin Divine Race. I know you're powerful and resourceful. You're definitely not afraid of the Great Yin Divine Race's revenge. But you're all alone after all, and your forces are weak. Your situation is too dangerous. Why don't you come with me to the Origin Returning Association and stay for a while? Not only can you hide temporarily, but you can also familiarize yourself with the situation here as soon as possible. Zhu Qingqing's attitude was very friendly and not arrogant at all. Seeing that Ji Tianqing was silent, he struck while the iron was hot and said, I know that you don't know enough about the Origin Returning Association and are still wary. But that's all right. The Origin Returning Association has never forced people to do things against their will. And we won't force anyone to join us. You can decide whether to stay or leave after you understand the Origin Returning Association. Ji Tianqing declined to comment and asked, Where is the Guiyuan Association's main camp? Is it safe? Zhu Qingqing thought that he was going to agree and was even more surprised. However, he feigned a troubled expression as he said, Brother Tianqing, you should know that we can't easily reveal the location of our base. Otherwise, we'll be surrounded by the Great Yin Divines. For the safety of more than 300 brothers, I shouldn't have told you. But I felt like you were an old friend at first sight and felt that you were trustworthy, so I made an exception for you. Our Origin Returning Association's headquarters is in the Sunset Sea region, north of the Bloodflame Divine Kingdom. If it was a normal person, they definitely wouldn't be able to withstand Zhu Qingqing's kindness, and would have to dispel the worries in their hearts. However, Ji Tianqing frowned and asked expressionlessly, Sunset Sea? That was the territory of the Sea Beasts. The Sea Beast clan is the most xenophobic. If the Origin Returning Association associates themselves with them, wouldn't they have long become the Sea Beast's dinner? Zhu Qingqing's heart skipped a beat. Cold sweat broke out on her back. A look of astonishment flashed across his eyes as he roared in his heart. What the hell? Didn't this kid just ascend? He actually knows about the Sunset Sea region? He even knows about the Sea Beast clan? This guy is too strange. How can he be a new ascendant? Although she was shocked, Zhu Qingqing's expression didn't change. She quickly explained, Brother Tianqing's knowledge is extraordinary. It's really unexpected. However, Brother Tianqing, you misunderstood. How can our Origin Returning Association associate ourselves with the ferocious sea beasts? To be honest, our headquarters is on an island near the sea. That's the border between the Great Yin Empire and the Sunset Sea region. The Great Yin Divine Kingdom doesn't dare to step into that place, and the sea beasts won't come close either. Ji Tianqing nodded and didn't pursue the matter any further. He looked at Zhu Qingqing expressionlessly and said calmly, I won't go with you to the Origin Returning Association. I have my own arrangements and plans. You don't have to waste your breath. You can pretend that nothing happened tonight. After that, Ji Tianqing turned and flew away. Zhu Qingqing quickly caught up with him and asked through voice transmission, Brother Tianqing, where are you going? This is Green Mountain City's territory. There are Great Yin Divine Kingdom elites everywhere. You'll be surrounded very soon. Ji Tianqing glanced at him and said indifferently, You don't have to worry about where I'm going. I don't believe that. Zhu Qingchang said righteously. The Origin Returning Association's duty is to protect the ascendants who are being persecuted. Brother Tianqing, it's fine if you don't go with me to the Origin Returning Association. However, you have to tell me where you're going. I have a divine artifact that can send you on your way. I guarantee that you'll be able to avoid the Great Yen Divine Kingdom's encirclement. Ji Tianqing glanced at the greenwood compass in his hand and said, I'm going to Green Mountain City. Are you sure you want to send me there? Huh. Zhu Qingchang's expression changed. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Brother Tianqing, are you kidding? The guards of Green Mountain City and Blue Mountain City are searching for you everywhere. You're walking right into their trap. Ji Tianqing was unmoved. He said indifferently, haven't you heard of this saying? The most dangerous place is the safest place. Zhu Qingchang choked again. He hesitated for a moment, then gritted his teeth as though he had made up his mind about something. Then he caught up to Ji Tianqing again, took out a dark red token, and handed it to Ji Tianqing. Brother Tianqing, as the Origin Returning Association's Foreign Affairs envoy, I can't just sit by and watch you die in Green Mountain City. This is Green Mountain City's household registration token. It's registered as a second-class divine kingdom. You can only enter and leave Bloodflame Divine Kingdom cities with this token. If you don't have it, you'll be captured by the guards immediately and sent to the mines for hard labor. Ji Tianqing stopped flying and turned to look at the household registration token. He asked Zhu Qingchang, I've never met you before, and I won't join the Origin Returning Association. Why are you giving me a household registration token? Zhu Qingchang smiled and said, Firstly, Lin Wuji killed more than 10 of our brothers. We have a blood feud with him. Tonight, you killed Lin Wuji, which can be considered as avenging us. Secondly, even if you don't join the Origin Returning Association, it's fine. We've known each other for a while, so it's good to form a good relationship. In the future, if you're in danger or have any difficulties, come find me. I'll still help you. Then he took out a communication jade slip and handed it to Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing knew that if he really needed Zhu Qingchang's help in the future, he would have to join the Origin Returning Association. But he believed that day wouldn't come. After thinking for a moment, Ji Tianqing took the household registration token and the communication jade slip. He bowed to Zhu Qingchang and said, Thank you, Brother Zhu. I owe you a favor and I'll definitely repay it in the future. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave now. Then he turned and flew to the west, quickly disappearing into the night sky. Chapter 2778. Zhu Qingchang stood where he was and watched as Ji Tianqing disappeared into the night sky. After a long while, he retracted his gaze and muttered with a frown, This guy is really arrogant and vigilant. He understood that Ji Tianqing was talking about owing him a favor, not owing the Origin Returning Association a favor. This meant that Ji Tianqing had never considered joining the Origin Gathering Association. However, it's normal for a genius with a mysterious background like him to be a little arrogant. I have to report this to the president as soon as possible. I believe the president will have a way to recruit him. Zhu Qingcheng murmured to herself. She hurriedly took out a communication jade slip and reported the matter in detail. After sending the transmission jade slip, he entered the vast forest and quickly left. Ji Tianqing flew west. After flying 1,000,000 miles, he stopped to rest. Hiding in a mountain, he took out Lin Wuji's quintessence fragment and devoured it. Lin Wuji was stronger, and his divine power was purer. After refining the quintessence fragment, Ji Tianqing and the heaven-mending pearl each received half of the divine power. Apart from that, Lin Wuji's quintessence fragment had condensed 9 laws. Among the heavenly deities, he was already considered an outstanding figure. After the quintessence fragment shattered, 4 laws were damaged. As for the other 5 perfectly preserved laws, Ji Tianqing had already mastered 3 of them. Therefore, he refined the other 2 laws as well. One was the law of blood flame and the other was the law of dark flame. They were unique laws that only the Great Yen Divine Clan possessed. In this way, Ji Tianqing had grasped as many as 14 laws. After devouring a sea of divine power, his strength increased by 30%. And he continued to advance toward the 7th level of the heavenly god realm. After cultivating for an hour, he continued on his way, heading straight for Green Mountain City. Along the way, he encountered more than a dozen great Yin Divine Clan elites. Clearly, they were Azure Mountain City's guards who had been ordered to search for him in the mountains. Naturally, he would not come into direct contact with them and avoided them in advance. The next morning the sun had just risen. Ji Tianqing left the endless mountains and arrived at Azure Mountain City's gates. He knew that Lin Wuji had sent out a message before he died. The guards of Blue Mountain City and Green Mountain City probably already knew about his appearance and characteristics. If he continued to maintain his original appearance, he might be recognized. Thus, he used the law of change to slightly change his appearance. He turned into a young man who was more than 10 feet tall and had a burly body. He was dressed in a black robe. His facial features had also changed slightly. He was no longer as handsome and heroic as before. Instead, he looked slightly more ordinary. This was especially true for his eyes, which easily revealed his extraordinary temperament. Therefore, he turned his eyes golden as well. His appearance looked like that of an ordinary Protoss, so he did not attract much attention. Qingshan City was huge. The city had a radius of 1,000 miles, and was situated on a grassland surrounded by mountains. The weather was pleasant. The 300-meter-tall brown city wall was built with 30-meter-long boulders. It had experienced thousands of years of vicissitudes, leaving behind mottled traces. As they got closer, they could feel the majestic pressure of the ancient city. Ji Tianqing leisurely walked towards the eastern city gate, secretly observing this majestic city. The 99-meter-tall wide city gate was still tightly shut at this moment. On the city wall, hundreds of guards wearing fiery red armor and carrying swords and spears could be clearly seen. Those were the city guards of Green Mountain City. They all had the strength of a heavenly god. The strength of an ordinary guard was between the second and third level of the heavenly god realm. Fourth and fifth level of the heavenly god realm could be the captain of the guards. And the city guards Qianhu and commanders were all above the sixth level of the heavenly god realm. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing thought to himself, currently, it seems that only the strength of the citizens of the heavenly god realm has not changed much. It was like this 1,000 years ago. Most people were void gods, the weakest at the bottom of the heavenly god realm. Then there were the large number of true gods who could only be ordinary citizens. Only heavenly gods dared to call themselves experts. They could be the guards and commanders of cities and towns. They were the backbone of countless kingdoms and forces. As for Divine Lord Realm experts, they were usually the lords of a city or the leaders of a sect or gang. Experts above the 7th level of the Divine Lord Realm were even rarer. They could usually rule over a kingdom. Ji Tianqing thought silently as he walked to the city gates. Outside the city gates, more than 100 people had already gathered, waiting in line to enter the city. Most of these people were the gods of Green Mountain City and the citizens of the surrounding cities. There were also a few great Yin divines who seemed to be adventurers or mercenaries. All of them were severely injured and extremely weak. Even so, they did not dare to rush or make a ruckus. They quietly waited for the city gates to open. Apart from that, there was a group of merchants who came from afar. They brought more than 20 heavenly god guards with them. They surrounded 3 bronze carriages. These carriages were pulled by 4 white-winged Pegasi. They were particularly eye-catching in the crowd. After the white-winged Pegasi landed, they waited docilely and did not make any noise. Ji Tianqing was curious. He used his divine sense to probe the bronze carriages. He immediately saw that there were more than 100 crystal balls in the bronze carriages. Each crystal ball was as big as a wash basin. There were many divine beasts sealed inside. There were divine foxes, divine leopards, divine wolves, divine pigs, divine snakes. There were all sorts of divine beasts. Ji Tianqing immediately understood that this group of merchants was in the pet business. Many gods and nobles would buy a large number of pets as mounts or battle beasts. He was about to withdraw his divine sense when a powerful wave of divine sense flashed across the first bronze carriage. Bang! Ji Tianqing's divine sense was hit. He blacked out and his body was paralyzed for a moment. The next moment he was back to normal. Clearly, the other party did not intend to kill him. They were just warning him with their actions. "Sir, don't you think it's rude to peep at others so blatantly?" A clear female voice was heard in Ji Tianqing's mind. Ji Tianqing looked up out of reflex. He saw a graceful female god wearing silver armor sitting on the first bronze carriage. She was a young female three-eyed god. She was half a step away from becoming a divine lord. She was 2 meters tall and had a golden sword hanging from her waist. She was full of vigor. A pair of icy blue eyes could be seen under the helmet. There was also an eye on her forehead that was as clear as a sapphire. When Ji Tianqing looked at her, she also turned her head and glanced at Ji Tianqing indifferently. Ji Tianqing cupped his fists at her without saying anything. It was considered an apology. The silver-armored woman did not pursue the matter. She turned her head and waited for the city gate to open. 15 minutes later, the bell on the city wall rang. Clang! Clang! It's time. Open the city gate. Then the wide and heavy city gate slowly opened to both sides. Hundreds of red-armored guards stepped out and guarded the city gate with swords and halberds. The civilians at the front of the line quickly took out their household registration badges and handed them to the city guards for inspection. They were waiting to be let in. Chapter 2779. The citizens at the front of the line verified their household registration cards and paid 10 godstones before entering the city. Then it was the merchant group's turn. A black-robed elder handed a jade archive to the city guard captain. The city guard captain glanced at it and then at the 3 carriages of the merchant group before his gaze landed on the silver-armored lady. Miss Siyuan, are you here to deliver the goods personally again? It's such a long journey and you must be tired. You should rest in the city for a few more days. The city guard captain revealed a smile and bowed to the silver-armored woman, showing respect and flattery. The silver-armored lady's expression was cold as she ignored the city guard captain's flattery. However, the black-robed elder smiled and said, "This batch of goods is very important. Of course, Miss Siyuan has to escort it personally. I heard that there's a big event in Green Mountain City, and Miss Siyuan is interested. Of course she'll stay for a few more days." The city guard captain's eyes lit up as he hurriedly said, "If Miss Siyuan is participating, then it's a must. I congratulate Miss Siyuan in advance." The black-robed elder exchanged some pleasantries with him before leading the merchant group through the city gates and into Green Mountain City. After the merchant group entered the city guard captain stopped smiling and carried out his mission with a stern expression. A moment later, an elder from the fallen feather tribe was stopped by 2 red-armored guards. Household registration card, 10 godstones. The white-haired elder from the fallen feather tribe trembled as he took out 100 godstones. He said with a fawning expression, "Sir, I'm from Blue Mountain City. I was attacked by ferocious beasts in the wild and lost my household registration card in the fight. Please make an exception." Before the old man could finish his words, the city guard captain slapped the godstone away and ordered coldly, "You don't have a household registration token? Take him down. Send him to the mine to do hard labor for 500 years before his household registration is restored." The 2 red-armored guards acknowledged the order and immediately placed their swords on the white-haired elder's neck. No matter how the elder begged for mercy and even pleaded with tears, the red-armored guards were unmoved and quickly took him away. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing frowned as a cold light flashed in his eyes. However, the surrounding commoners did not react at all. It was obvious that they were already used to this. 100 breaths later, it was Ji Tianqing's turn. He took out the household registration card that Zhu Qingqing had given him and handed it to the red-armored guard in front of him. The red-armored guard used a dark red jade plate and returned it to him after inspecting it. 10 divine stones. Ji Tianqing remained silent. With a flip of his hand, he took out 10 godstones and handed them to the red-armored guard. Fortunately, when he killed the 5 Thunder Pool guards earlier, he plundered their spatial rings. Those Thunder Pool guards were not wealthy. Ji Tianqing only managed to obtain a batch of heavenly god tier materials and medicinal pills, as well as tens of thousands of divine stones. However, this was enough for him to do a lot of things. "Go in." The red-armored guard took the 10 godstones and waved his hand. Ji Tianqing strode through the city gate and stepped onto a straight and wide road. The granite-paved road was very smooth and clean. It was 20 zhang wide and extended all the way to the center of the city. This was one of the main roads of Qingshan City. Red maple trees were planted on both sides of the road. It was fiery red and very eye-catching. Behind the rows of red maple trees was a small path for pedestrians to play. It was 30 zhang wide, and beside it were rows upon rows of houses and shops. In the many shops there was a dazzling array of goods. Divine weapons, armors, medicinal herbs, cloth, restaurants and tea-houses had everything that one could wish for. The gods and commoners of various races strolled leisurely, strolling around the many shops. It was very relaxing. Ji Tianqing walked along the road for hundreds of miles. Along the way, he saw hundreds of thousands of commoners and gods. Whether it was the shops in the streets or the tea-houses and wine shops on both sides of the road, they were all crowded and surging with people. This Qingyang city was more prosperous than he had expected. Moreover, he discovered that the commoners in the city were carefree and undisciplined from the bottom of their hearts. 99% of the commoners and gods did not wear armor or carry weapons with them. To put it simply, the entire city did not have a trace of chaos. There was also no aura of battle or killing. Instead, it was filled with peace, tranquility, and undisciplined feeling. The divine world 1,000 years ago, no matter which continent it was not like this. Fights, robberies, and killings could be seen everywhere. In such a big city, there could be conflicts at any time. Who would have thought that today, 1,000 years later, it would be so peaceful? Ji Tianqing was secretly puzzled. He was interested and curious about the situation of Qingyang City and the blood-flame divine country. For hours later, Ji Tianqing strolled for more than 200 li and walked to the square in the center of the city. This square was 30 li in radius. Not only was it wide and flat, but it was also built very delicately. It was noon. There were not many people strolling in the huge square. The hundreds of red-armored guards guarding the square also had a lazy and leisurely attitude. Ji Tianqing stepped into the square. His gaze was fixed on the thousands of zhang-tall statues in the middle of the square. In the middle of many squares, there would be a statue erected. This was very common. The statues in the square of a sect were usually of the founder who had founded the sect. In the square of a city, there would usually be a statue of a king or a peerless hero. In this square there were a total of 3 statues erected. The statue in the middle was the tallest. It was thousands of zhang tall. The carving was lifelike and majestic. Even from 10 li away, Ji Tianqing could see it clearly. It was a middle-aged man with a thin body and a dark face. He wore a black robe with golden patterns. His purple hair draped over his shoulders. His face was as sharp as an axe. Especially his eyes. They were as sharp as an eagle's, as if they could pierce the sky. His hands were as thin as an eagle's claws. There were 6 sharp and narrow wings on his back. His chin was also like a curved blade. It was this black-robed man who did not look graceful or luxurious. His appearance was ordinary, and his aura was somewhat sinister, but he was carved with a dignified appearance. He looked down on the world and was as domineering as the heavens overlooking the earth. When Ji Tianqing saw the statue's appearance, his footsteps froze. His brows furrowed. His eyes flashed with astonishment and killing intent. It's him. It's actually him. Without a doubt, Ji Tianqing knew the black-robed man who was carved with a domineering and dignified air. Not only did he know him, but he was also an irreconcilable enemy. Azura God King. Ji Tianqing stared at the statue and muttered in his heart. His fists were also secretly clenched. In an instant, memories from 1,000 years ago surged into his mind, evoking endless killing intent. Because back then, the 5 great god kings schemed against him. They joined forces to besiege him and snatch his heaven-punishing array diagram. And the Azura God King was one of the 5. The 5 great god kings gathered more than 10,000 divine lords and allied with various major factions. They used decades to set up a trap before finally killing him. The battle in the starry skies was unprecedented, and it was incomparably tragic. Kenshin perished with hatred. Bright Moon perished. White Dragon perished. 10,000 gods perished. Ever since Ji Tianqing recovered his memories, there was not a moment when he did not think of revenge. Chapter 2780. After a long while, Ji Tianqing's hatred and killing intent finally subsided. He stared coldly at the Azura God King statue and thought to himself, the Azura God King comes from the firmament continent. His faction's foundation and lair are there. This is the boundless heaven continent. Why would his statue appear in a small nameless city? Puzzled, Ji Tianqing looked at the other two statues. To the left of the Azura God King statue was a 600-foot-tall statue. It was a tall, dark-red middle-aged man. He wore a luxurious golden robe and an imperial crown on his head. Ji Tianqing knew at a glance that it was a statue of the Great Yin divine tribe. It was very likely that it was the emperor of the Great Yin Empire. He looked to the right of the Azura God King statue. There was a 300-foot-tall statue. It was also a middle-aged man of the Great Yin divine tribe. He wore luxurious golden robes and wore an imperial crown. He held a dark gold divine sword in his hands. The three statues were of different heights and positions. The Azura God King statue was the tallest and was in the middle. It was slightly to the front. The statue on the left was the second tallest and was a body length behind the Azura God King statue. The statue on the right was the shortest and was the furthest back. From these details, one could see that the stature of the three statues differed. At this moment, a Great Yin divine tribe youth dressed in luxurious robes walked over with a jade fan. He had noticed Ji Tianqing long ago. When he saw Ji Tianqing staring at the three statues with a strange expression, he secretly observed him for a moment. At this moment he came to Ji Tianqing's side and sized up Ji Tianqing in confusion. He asked, "Brother, why are you in a daze? It's not even the day of worship yet, and you're already here to admire the might of great Emperor Shura and our emperor?" Ji Tianqing frowned slightly when he heard this. His heart skipped a beat. However, he remained calm. He turned to look at the youth in luxurious robes and sized him up. The finely dressed young man had a dignified appearance. He was elegant and graceful, and his words and actions carried an air of nobility. Clearly, he was a young master of the Great Yin celestial race. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly in greeting. "Did you mention Emperor Shura just now? May I ask what's going on?" The finely dressed young man was stunned for a moment. He frowned in confusion and looked at him again. Then he smiled and asked, "Brother, are you deliberately pretending to be stupid? Or are you teasing me? The statue on the left is the emperor of the Great Yin Empire. If you're from another empire, it's fine if you don't recognize me, and I won't blame you for being rude. However, the statue in the middle was the incomparably noble ruler of the continent, the Azura God Emperor who looked down upon the 9 heavens. Even the laborers and farmers from the countryside had to recognize His Majesty, God Emperor Azura. How could you not know him? Master of the continent? Azura God Emperor? Ji Tianqing's heart shook as he muttered to himself. 1,000 years have passed, and the Azura God King actually took control of the boundless heaven continent and became the master of boundless heaven? How is this possible? This is too preposterous. 1,000 years ago there were countless God Kings, empires and super forces on the 4 continents. There has never been a God King or a force that could unify the entire continent. The Azura God King, How is this possible? Ji Tianqing found it hard to believe. He calmed himself down and asked the finely dressed young man, "Brother, I've only heard that the strongest person on the continent was called a God King. When was there such a thing as a God Emperor? Could it be that the Azura God King proclaimed himself the God Emperor after unifying the boundless heaven continent?" The finely dressed young man's expression became even stranger when he heard this. He looked Ji Tianqing up and down a few times before asking in a low voice, "Brother, tell me the truth. Did you lose your memory? Or are you saying that you've been cultivating in seclusion for over 900 years, and know nothing about the changes on the continent? You're lucky to have met me today. If you had said this to anyone else, you would have been thrown into prison long ago. To dare blaspheme the Azura God Emperor's divine might like this is a capital offense that requires beheading." Ji Tianqing hurriedly nodded and said with a voice transmission, "Brother indeed has discerning eyes like torches and is warm-hearted. I'm very grateful. Truth be told, I mistakenly barged into a mystic realm many years ago and suffered heavy injuries, almost losing my life. A few days ago I just escaped by a fluke, but I lost my past memories. Currently, I'm muddle-headed and feel unfamiliar with everything around me. I'll have to trouble brother to tell me, lest I inadvertently offend the divine might and invite a fatal disaster." Only then did the finely dressed young man come to a realization and repeatedly nodded his head as he said, "So that's how it is. No wonder I saw that your expression was odd with a blank look. Oh right, do you have a household registration in your country?" Ji Tianxing was just about to nod his head in agreement when the finely dressed young man waved his hand and said, "No need to mind. This young master was just asking casually. Even if you don't have a household registration, with this young master here, no one dares to check you either." Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and asked with cupped fists, "May I ask who this brother is?" The finely dressed young man waved his jade fan, puffed out his chest and said proudly, "This young master's surname is Qi Huanji. People call me Fair-Face Flying Dragon." Chapter 2781. Qi Huanji drank a few cups of wine and was in a good mood. He explained the origin of the God Emperor's name to Ji Tianxing without stopping and in great detail. Of course, he had not lost his mind and did not dare to openly discuss the Azura God Emperor's past. In order to prevent the walls from having ears, he spoke to Ji Tianxing through telepathy. The God Kings and overlords of the various domains have all submitted to the Azura God Emperor. The Azura God Emperor's hundreds of laws have also been carried out by the overlords of the various domains. Because of this, the entire continent has become peaceful, and there has been no war for 900 years. In addition, the Azura God Emperor has also issued a decree to erect statues of him in all the countries and cities. On a certain day every month, all the cities and cities will hold a pilgrimage ceremony, and all the citizens will worship him devoutly. Not only his statues, but the statues of the emperors of the various empires and god nations will also be worshipped. Qi Huanji gave him a brief rundown of what he knew. Ji Tianxing listened in silence. Although he did not show it on his face, his heart was in turmoil. The Azura God King has broken through the God King realm and understood the mysteries of heaven? He has taken the final step to disrupt the mysteries of heaven and interfere with the will of heaven? It must be the eternal heavenly book. I have the heaven vanquishing formation and those 5 bastards have the eternal heavenly book. The Azura God King has comprehended an even more profound law from the eternal heavenly book. That is how he was able to take the final step. Ji Tianxing believed that only the eternal heavenly book and the heaven vanquishing formation could help the Azura God King break through his limits and reach a higher realm. This was because both the eternal heavenly book and the heaven vanquishing formation were supreme treasures from supreme ruins. Moreover, both supreme treasures were part of the same body. The eternal heavenly book was the first half and the heaven vanquishing formation was the second half. When Kenshin had obtained the heaven vanquishing formation, he had been besieged by the 5 god kings and countless other gods before he could comprehend the mysteries within. Ji Tianxing didn't know what happened after that, and what changes the god world had undergone. However, after listening to Qi Huanji's story, Ji Tianxing could roughly guess what had happened. Azura God King, Azura God Emperor. In that case, the backer of the heaven punishers, the godly king who called himself the God Emperor, could be the Shura God Emperor? He unified the boundless heaven continent and became the overlord of the continent. However, he was not strong enough to fully comprehend the eternal heavenly scripture. Therefore, he issued an order for all the cities and towns on the continent to build a statue of him and worship him every month. In this way, he can harvest the power of faith of the entire boundless heaven continent and continuously increase his strength. Ji Tianxing pondered silently and vaguely guessed the truth. Murderous intent surged in his heart, and there was a hidden coldness in his eyes. However, he hid it very well, and Qi Huanji, who was beside him, did not notice. After Qi Huanji finished speaking, he asked again, "Young Master Qi, I heard that the God world has 3 other continents besides the boundless heaven continent. I wonder if the situation of the other 3 continents is the same as the boundless heaven continent. Have they also been unified? If that's the case, which God Emperor are the overlords of the other 3 continents?" Ji Tianxing guessed that the Azura God King had broken through to the God Emperor level. The other 4 godly kings who had besieged him might have also taken the last step and called themselves God Emperor. Unexpectedly, Qi Huangji looked at him blankly and asked doubtfully, "There are 4 continents in the God world? Who told you that? Isn't this nonsense? Are those storytellers making up stories to cheat you out of your money? I only know that the boundless heaven continent is so vast that it's unimaginable. There are close to 100 regions on the continent, and our Golden Mountain region is only one of them. There are 8 empires in the Golden Mountain region, and each empire has more than 10 god nations. Our Bloodfire God Nation is one of the Great Yin Empire's vassal states. I don't even know how big the Bloodfire God Nation is, let alone the entire Great Yin Empire." At this point, Qi Huangji raised his head and drank the wine in his cup. He said proudly, "Brother Tianqing, I have a very big dream. Do you want to know?" Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said, "I'd like to hear the details." Qi Huangji was slightly drunk. He held his head high and said, "My biggest dream in this life is to be able to travel all over the Golden Mountain region, the 8 empires, and get to know the heroes of the world." "Brother Tianqing, are you envious? Are you shocked? Haha. The territory of the Golden Mountain region is vast and boundless. Without the strength of a divine lord and sufficient wealth, it's impossible to travel all over. Only someone with my status can have the chance to realize this dream." Ji Tianqing fell silent. He had wanted to ask about the other continents, but he did not expect Qi Huangji to be so ignorant. Traveling through the entire Jinshan domain was his lifelong wish and dream. This was simply hilarious. Of course, Ji Tianqing had been a peak divine king in his previous life. He had traveled all over the 4 continents in the divine world. His experience and knowledge were only comparable to that of a peak divine king. A person like Qi Huangji was just a rich young master from a remote village. They could not be mentioned in the same breath. Ji Tianqing knew what Qi Huangji was thinking, so he did not say anything. Next, Qi Huangji told him the story of the Great Yin Empire and the Bloodfire God Nation. In the past few hundred years, Qi Huangji had exaggerated the deeds and major events that had been circulating among the people. Ji Tianqing listened quietly and did not comment. 2 hours later, Qi Huangji was getting more and more drunk, and he stopped talking. He patted Ji Tianqing's shoulder and said proudly, "Brother Tianqing, I'm not in a good mood today, but I met such an interesting person like you. Thank you for drinking with me. I'm in a much better mood now. You've just arrived and you've lost your memory. If you don't have anyone to rely on and have nowhere to go, why don't you come back to the Qi residence with me? Anyway, I'm a generous person and love to make friends with people with special abilities from all over the world. By the way, how strong are you? If you're a level 6 heavenly god, I'll arrange a job for you. I guarantee that you'll be respected in Green Mountain City." Ji Tianqing cupped his hands and politely declined his invitation. "Thank you for your kindness, Master Qi, but I'm not in a position to impose." Qi Huangji thought for a while and took out a bag of divine stones. "You don't even have a place to stay in Green Mountain City. Take these divine stones. It'll be convenient for you to eat and stay in the city. If you encounter any difficulties, come to the Qi residence to look for me." Ji Tianqing smiled and shook his head. "Thank you, Master Qi, but I can't accept a reward without any effort. Please take it back. I plan to stay in the Star Moon Pavilion for a few days to settle some things first." Qi Huangji looked at him deeply before taking back the bag of divine stones. He nodded and said, "Not bad, you're an interesting person. You can stay here for now. No one will dare to make things difficult for you if you mention my name. I'll take my leave first. I still have to serve that iceberg lady when I get back. Sigh, what a tough life." Chapter 2782. Qi Huangji shook his head bitterly and left, reeking of alcohol. When he reached the lobby on the first floor, he didn't forget to ask the manager to prepare a good room for Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing sat alone in the VIP room, still thinking about what Qi Huangji had said. The blue-robed manager came in person and took Ji Tianqing to the guest room. The Star Moon Pavilion was large and luxurious. Obviously, it had a powerful background. The 3-story building facing the street was just a place to drink tea and drink. The guest room was in the backyard. There was a palace and 2 courtyards, all of which were protected by a divine formation. The manager led Ji Tianqing into the Cholon courtyard. The courtyard with a radius of 100 meters was clean and elegant, decorated beautifully. Not only that, but there were also 4 guards, 2 maids, and a coachman in the courtyard. Ji Tianqing had asked the manager and found that it would cost 3,000 divine stones a day to stay in this courtyard. That was a sky-high price. Normal celestial gods couldn't afford it. Ji Tianqing killed Lin Wuji and the 5 Thunder Pool guards, took their interspatial rings, and got more than 20,000 divine stones. This could be considered as a small fortune. However, he was only able to pay for 8 days of stay in the Star Moon Pavilion. Ji Tianqing only mentioned when he would pay for the room. The manager bowed at once and said with a smile, "Mr. Tianqing, you must be joking. You are Mr. Qi's friend. How dare we charge you?" Obviously, Ji Tianqing had counted all the money for the room on Qi Huangji's head. This made Ji Tianqing secretly surprised. Was Qi Huangji really a tycoon? He asked around and found out from the shopkeeper that the Qi family was indeed the wealthiest family in Qingshan City. The Qi family was in the pet business and their network was spread across half of the Bloody Blaze divine nation. They were indeed rich. Qi Huangji was the young master of the Qi family. He wasn't interested in cultivation or business, but he was obsessed with traveling the world. However, the rules of the Qi family were very strict. The family master was strict and rigid. Qi Huangji had no chance to leave Qingshan City unless it was something important. Therefore, Qi Huangji was very generous and hospitable to the adventurers, wanderers, and eccentrics who came from afar. After learning this information, Ji Tianqing roughly understood that Qi Huangji was a free, undisciplined, and unambitious dandy. Fortunately, this foppish young master's nature wasn't bad, and he wasn't annoying. After settling Ji Tianqing down, the shopkeeper took his leave and left Cholong Courtyard. 2 slender and enchanting maidservants of the Fox God clan entered the room, preparing to help Ji Tianqing undress and bathe. Ji Tianqing waved his hand to dismiss them, and entered the secret room to practice alone. There were several divine formations set up in the 10-meter square secret room. If one cultivated here, they would not be disturbed. Ji Tianqing summoned the 9th Heaven 10 Absolutes Pagoda and summoned Yunyao, Jiku, and the others. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Yunyao, Jiku, Ji Wushuang, White Dragon, Qianyu, and Black Dragon appeared in the secret room. The secret room was not big to begin with, and it looked a little cramped. "Little fox, shrink your body. You're squeezing us." "Black Dragon, curl up. Your tail is poking me." White Dragon glared at Qianyu and Black Dragon, then growled in a low voice. After Qianyu shrank into a watermelon-sized furball, Black Dragon curled up his body, and the secret room became a little more spacious. White Dragon couldn't wait to ask, "Master, have we left the lightning pool? Where are we?" Yunyao looked at Ji Tianqing and asked, "Tianqing, did you run into any trouble when you left the lightning pool?" Jiku asked, "Brother Tianqing, have you settled down? Which continent are we on?" Ji Tianqing raised his hand to signal for everyone to be quiet. He said calmly, "Don't worry, everyone. Although something happened when I left the lightning pool, I'm safe now." Then he told everyone what happened after he left the lightning pool. After everyone heard what he said, they felt that it was a close call and started discussing. "I didn't expect the Great Yin Celestial Tribe to be so despicable. They actually took the resources of the Ascenders and sent them to the mines to do hard labor. Blue Mountain City's guards are searching for Brother Tianqing everywhere. We're not far from here, and it's dangerous. Old Ji is lucky to have met Zhu Qingqing and young Master Qi. That's how we settled down in Green Mountain City. Master, how long do you plan to stay in Green Mountain City?" Ji Tianqing said calmly, "The heavenly realm now is no longer the heavenly realm of the past. The Azura God King saw through the secrets of the heavens and took the final step to break through to the God Emperor realm. Now, he rules the entire boundless heaven continent and has set strict rules. He even forces the people of the world to worship him regularly and provide him with power of faith. It's clear that he's plotting something. On the boundless heaven continent, all divine nations have a household registration system. Without a household registration card, it's difficult to move around. At any time, you might be captured and sent to the mines to do hard labor. That's why we'll stay in Green Mountain City for a while. At the very least, I have to get you a household registration card so you can have a legal identity. Also, I suspect that the Azura God Emperor is the backer of the Heaven Punishers. No matter if it's old or new, I must settle it with him. I must kill him for revenge. Jika frowned and thought for a moment. Then he asked doubtfully, Brother Qianqing, we're weak now. We don't have the right to take revenge at all. We have to lie low and wait until we're strong enough to take revenge on the Azura God Emperor. Also, when the God King's clone descended to the mortal realm, the divine abilities and power attributes he used were not like the Azura God Emperor's. I think that the Heaven Punisher's backers might be the other God Kings. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said, I've also thought about this question, but I can't confirm the answer for now. I even suspect that the other peak God Kings have also broken through to the God Emperor realm and ruled other continents. However, with our current strength, we can't leave the boundless Heaven continent, let alone cross the sea and go to other continents. Therefore, we can only stay in the boundless Heaven continent and slowly plan and investigate the truth. Everyone nodded in agreement. Yunyao said, Tianqing, we all support your decision. This is the northernmost part of the boundless Heaven continent. The terrain is very remote. If we accumulate strength here, we won't be noticed by the Azura God Emperor. We're not afraid of him seeing through our identities. The most important thing now is that we have to get a household registration card as soon as possible so that we can move freely. Tianqing, what are your plans? Ji Tianqing said in a low voice, if we want to develop steadily, we have to hide our identities and erase all traces of the past. There are 7 people who have seen my real face and know that I'm an ascender. I killed Lin Wuji and the 5 Thunder Pool guards. Only Zhu Qingqing is still alive. Also, he saw me kill Lin Wuji with his own eyes. He will definitely guess that I have the Heavenly Dao's opportunity. No matter what, I can't join the Origin Returning Association. I won't have any contact with them in the future. Even the household registration card in my hands must be replaced as soon as possible. When I entered Qingshan City, I had already changed my appearance. I looked like an ordinary God race member. This way I won't attract attention. Next, I plan to use Qi Huanji to change our identities. "70 years ago, several experts from the Qi family and the Qi family were hunting for mythical beasts in the coastal waters of the setting Sun Sea region and accidentally discovered a mysterious island. Several experts entered the isolated island and chased after the 2 divine beasts. They unintentionally entered a mysterious cave. As a result, the strength of the 2 divine beasts increased dramatically in the cave, killing and injuring several experts. Only 2 experts were still alive. They hurriedly retreated from the mysterious cave and sent a request for help to their respective families. The experts from the Qi clan and Qi clan rushed to the isolated island and started investigating the mysterious cave. They successfully captured 2 divine beasts and discovered a secret. Inside that mysterious cave, there were not only colorful profound lights, but also incomparably rich divine stones and metal ores. However, there were several powerful divine beasts in the cave, as well as several monarch-grade divine formations of the Sea Beast clan. The Qi family and the Qi family did not have any divine lord experts. After paying a huge price, they were still unable to occupy the cave. Thus, they secretly found the city lord's mansion and asked for help. If they successfully occupied the cave, the 3 forces would divide the divine level stone and divine gold mines equally. However, the 2 divine lords sent by the city lord's mansion also suffered great losses one after another. When the news spread, the other 3 great families also came out in full force and rushed over to help. Hence, the 6 great forces joined forces and each displayed their abilities. They racked their brains and methods before killing the divine beasts in the cave and cracking the divine formations left behind by the Sea Beast clan. After the 6 great forces occupied the mysterious cave, they named it Mystic Light Cave. However, they were unable to come to an agreement on the issue of resource distribution. The various forces put forward various conditions, wanting to obtain more resources and treasures. In the end, the city lord made the final decision. Every 10 years, the 6 great forces would conduct a martial arts competition. Whoever won would be able to control the Mystic Light Cave for 10 years. For the sake of fairness, Divine Lord Realm experts were not allowed to participate. Only young disciples below the Divine Lord realm, and within 1,000 years old were qualified to participate in the martial arts competition. This compromise received the approval of the several great families. But the following 60 years made the 5 great families so depressed that they vomited blood. The city lord's mansion won all 6 martial arts competitions in a row. There was no choice. The city lord's son was seriously too strong. He had long reached the half-step Divine Lord realm. The young disciples of the 5 great families were all defeated under his sword. Hence, the city lord's mansion suppressed all heroes. In these 70 years it had always been the city lord's mansion occupying the mystic light cave, wantonly extracting the divine stones and resources inside. The 5 great families burned with anxiety when they saw this, jealous until their eyes turned red. But they could not violate the agreement and could only fiercely drill their family disciples. The 5 great families were all looking forward to the next martial arts competition. Their family disciples could defeat the city lord's son and seize back the mystic light cave. In another 3 days' time it would be the 7th martial arts competition. Ji Tianqing immediately understood. No wonder Qi Huangji was in a bad mood and came out alone to relieve his boredom. Although Qi Huangji has 9th level celestial deity strength, he's also pulling up seedlings to help them grow. His foundation weak. With his combat strength facing off against a half-step Divine Lord realm expert, he'll definitely be defeated in less than 10 moves. Ji Tianqing secretly pondered and had an idea very soon. However, he could not take the initiative for this matter. He had to get Qi Huangji to speak first, then he would seize the opportunity to take action. Only then could the plan go smoothly. Hence he meditated and cultivated in the hidden chamber, waiting silently. Without his orders, the guards and 2 maids did not dare to disturb him. Before he knew it, a whole day had passed. No one stepped into Cholon courtyard. It was time for the evening lights to be lit again. Ji Tianqing was still cultivating in the hidden chamber, not in a hurry at all. Time passed silently. For hours later it was late at night. Suddenly, the guard's voice came from outside the hidden chamber. Reporting to young Master Tianqing, an important guest has come to visit. Hearing the guard's report, Ji Tianqing opened his eyes and a smile appeared on his face. He's really here. He did not know anyone in Qingshan City. Other than Qi Huangji, who else would come to visit him? Hence, Ji Tianqing got up and left the hidden chamber, walking toward the living room. As soon as he stepped into the living room, he saw Qi Huangji sitting at the table, looking dejected and depressed. Qi Huangji was holding a wine cup and drinking by himself, while 2 maids of the Divine Fox clan were massaging his shoulders and legs. Ji Tianqing greeted him with a smile and asked knowingly, "Young Master Qi, what brings you here so late at night?" Qi Huangji gestured for him to sit down and poured him a cup of wine, saying, "The night is long, and I'm not in the mood to sleep. Since I have nothing to do, I came to visit Brother Tianqing and have a drink with you." Ji Tianqing held the wine cup but did not drink. He smiled and said, "Looking at your worried face, you must have something on your mind. I'm curious what in Qingshan City can make young Master Qi so anxious." Chapter 2784. Qi Huangji was also an interesting person. If it were anyone else, they wouldn't be close friends with Ji Tianqing, nor would they confide in him. At most, they would say a few perfunctory words and wouldn't tell him the real reason. Of course, most people wouldn't ask Ji Tianqing to stay in Cholon courtyard after meeting him. It was too expensive. Qi Huangji put down his wine cup and stared straight at Ji Tianqing. "Brother Tianqing, do you really want to know the reason?" Ji Tianqing maintained his smile and nodded. Qi Huangji hesitated for a moment, then dismissed the 2 maids. When only he and Ji Tianqing were left in the living room, he lowered his voice and said, "Brother Tianqing, let me ask you a question first. If your parents love you very much, but they force you to do something impossible, what will you do?" Ji Tianqing said without hesitation, "As long as you dare to think and do it, there's nothing impossible in this world." Qi Huangji was stunned for a moment, then gave him a thumbs up. "Brother Tianqing, you're really an interesting and special person. However, I really can't do it. You know Yuan Jia, right? He's the eldest son of the Qingshan City Lord, our young lord." He was born more than 90 years after me, but he became a half-step divine lord 80 years ago. My father forced me to defeat him, or I would have to marry into the Sky Snow City's Ning family and marry that iceberg Ning Siyuan. Marry into the Sky Snow City's Ning family? Marry that iceberg? Ji Tianqing was stunned for a moment, then couldn't help laughing. Isn't it funny? Qi Huangji said with a bitter smile on his face. Everyone in Qingshan City thinks it's hilarious and absurd. It's so ridiculous, but my parents agreed to it. When I was 10 years old, my father set up a marriage agreement with the Ning family. That iceberg is in my house. My parents treat her like the apple of their eye, but they give me the cold shoulder. I have a home that I can't go back to. After Qi Huangji finished speaking, he poured 3 more cups of wine and drank them all in one gulp. Perhaps he felt that the wine cup was too small to satisfy his craving, so he picked up the wine pot and was about to pour it into his mouth. Ji Tianqing reached out and pressed down on the wine jug. He restrained his smile and asked seriously, "Young Master Qi, getting drunk can solve 1,000 worries, but it can't break your engagement with Miss Ning. Let me ask you, is Miss Ning's family also in the pet business?" When he asked this question, he thought of the caravan he had encountered when he entered the city gate. That 3-eyed woman in silver armor should be Ning Siyuan. Qi Huangji paused for a moment, then nodded. "Yes. It seems that you haven't been idle for the past 2 days. Have you gone out to gather information?" Ji Tianqing didn't answer. Instead, he asked, "Is Miss Ning's family more powerful than your Qi family?" "Of course." Qi Huangji quickly nodded and explained, "My family is the richest in Green Mountain City, and the Ning family is the richest in Sky Snow City. Qingshan City was a small city in a remote area, while Sky Snow City was a county city, one of the 10 most prosperous main cities of the Blood Flame Divine Country. For example, the Ning family is a resplendent palace, and my family is a shabby thatched hut. My father can't wait to curry favor with the Ning family. How would he dare to break off the engagement? Besides, Ning Siyuan is as cold as an iceberg. She's beautiful, ruthless, and strong. How would I dare to provoke her?" Qi Huangji complained again and again, with a pitiful look. Ji Tianqing continued to ask, "Your father forced you to defeat Yuan Jie because of the Cave of Dark Light, right?" Qi Huangji nodded. "Yes, it's not a secret. You can ask anyone about it. The martial arts competition will be held in 2 days. Not to mention that I can't beat Yuan Jie. The other 4 young masters will also be beaten to a pulp by Yuan Jie. But Yuan Jie is very arrogant. Every time he beats us, he humiliates us and makes a few cold gestures, making the girls in the city scream." Ji Tianqing could tell that Qi Huangji was prejudiced against Yuan Jie. He thought for a moment and asked, "Since Miss Ning is engaged to you, then she's your fiancée. Since she came to Qingshan City, she can represent your Qi family in the martial arts competition. I heard that she's also a half-step divine sovereign. She should be able to match Yuan Jie." Qi Huangji stared straight at Ji Tianqing and smiled bitterly. "Brother, why are you like my father?" Ji Tianqing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Bah, what I mean is..." Qi Huangji reacted and quickly corrected himself. "Why do you think the same as my parents?" "Can't I?" Ji Tianqing asked. "Of course not." Qi Huangji put down his wine cup and explained, "Although I'm engaged to Ning Siyuan, I'm marrying into her family. I'll be ridiculed by the world. Besides, I don't like her and she looks down on me. Why would she help me? Besides, the city lord's mansion and the other aristocratic families know that she's the daughter of the Ning family. She won't marry into my Qi family. Even if she wants to participate, the city lord's mansion and the aristocratic families won't agree." "I see." Only then did Ji Tianqing understand the situation. He muttered, "I thought she came to Qingshan City at this time to help your Qi clan." Qi Huangji waved his hand. "You're overthinking. Ji Tianqing asked again, "Is the Dark Light Cave really that important?" "Of course." Qi Huangji explained in a firm tone. "Let me put it this way. Our Qi family's pet business can earn us hundreds of millions of divine stones a year. But 1 year of mining in the Dark Light Cave is equivalent to 20 years of business for my family. No wonder the aristocratic families are jealous." Chapter 2785. Beihai Street, the most prosperous street in the city. The famous Qi mansion was located at the end of the street. This magnificent mansion occupied an area of nearly 10 miles and could accommodate nearly 10,000 people. Inside the mansion there was a small lake as bright as a mirror, a lush green hill, and a large garden full of flowers. Even though it was late at night, the Qi mansion was still brightly lit and filled with people. Just in terms of guards and servants, the Qi family had more than 3,000 people. Only the wealthiest family in Qingshan City, the Qi family, had such wealth. At this moment in the main hall of the Qi mansion, Master Qi Tianlong and Mistress Qin Peipei were watching two shadow puppets with a silver-armored woman. The masters who performed the shadow puppets were invited by the Qi family from Tianfeng County at an exorbitant price. In order to please the silver-armored woman, Qi Tianlong and his wife put in a lot of effort. Many elders, deacons, and young disciples of the Qi family were lucky enough to watch the shadow puppets. They were all dazzled and intoxicated. At the head of the table, the burly and dignified Qi Tianlong sat in the main seat. On the surface, he was staring at the shadow puppets in the main hall, but in reality, he was secretly observing the silver-armored woman's reaction. He couldn't help it. The silver-armored woman from the three-eyed godly clan was too honorable. She was Qi Huangji's fiancée, the eldest daughter of the Ning family from Tianxue City, Ning Xiyuan. Mistress Qin Peipei was dressed elegantly and gracefully. She personally sat beside Ning Xiyuan and chatted with her from time to time. However, Ning Xiyuan was not interested in the shadow puppets. Most of the time she was silent. No one knew what was on her mind. Ever since she came to Qingshan City, she had never left her silver armor. She had a cold attitude that kept people away. Even now, in the main hall of the Qi mansion, she was still wearing her silver armor and only took off her helmet. She had a fair and delicate face and a pair of deep icy blue eyes, which added a mysterious and cold temperament to her beautiful face. The young disciples of the Qi family sitting around the main hall couldn't help but glance at her. Many people were jealous and secretly sighed. Just how capable was the young master Qi Huangji to be able to set up an engagement with such a proud daughter of heaven? What a beautiful and noble woman! Her status was noble, and her talent and strength were superior to those of her generation. She was simply a goddess in the hearts of countless men. Even if he married into the Ning family and became a laughingstock, it was still worth it. Unfortunately, Qi Huangji did not know how to appreciate his good fortune and actually rejected this marriage. He simply did not know what was good for him and was recklessly wasting God's gift. Not long after, the two shadow puppets finished, and the masters left the stage. The elders, deacons, and disciples of the Qi family also bowed and left. Only Qi Tianlong, Qin Peipei, and Ning Xiyuan were left in the brightly lit hall. Qi Tianlong nodded to Ning Xiyuan and asked kindly, "Miss Xiyuan, tonight several masters performed God Emperor Evil and Ding 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 the World. When I saw it, my heart was stirred and I felt great respect for it. What do you think?" Ning Xiyuan nodded calmly and said, "It's all right." Her voice was clear and melodious like a silver bell, very pleasant to listen to. Qi Tianlong was startled and a little embarrassed. Obviously, Ning Xiyuan was not very interested in this. Qin Peipei hurriedly smoothed things over and said with a smile, "Master, Xiyuan is a heroine, a heroine. She usually puts her mind on the family business and cultivation. Why would she care about these small tricks?" She took Ning Xiyuan's hand and explained, "Xiyuan, we were afraid that you would feel bored and unhappy staying in the Qi family, so we invited the masters to perform for you to relieve your boredom." Ning Xiyuan nodded politely and said calmly, "I've troubled uncle and auntie." Qi Tianlong quickly waved his hand and said, "Miss Xiyuan, you're too polite. Back then, your father and I were friends who went through life and death together. Not only are you the daughter-in-law of the Qi family, but you're also my precious daughter in my heart." Qi Tianlong's words were half true and half false. Ning Xiyuan was obviously not good at pleasantries. She just nodded and did not say anything else. Qin Peipei held her hand and said, "Xiyuan, it's late now. Auntie will send you back to rest." Ning Xiyuan quickly shook her head. "Xiyuan is a junior. How could I trouble Auntie to send me back?" Qin Peipei smiled and quickly ordered the maids to bring Ning Xiyuan back to rest. Ning Siyuan walked to the door of the main hall and suddenly stopped. She turned her head and asked, "Oh right, why didn't Huanji show up tonight? I've been in the Qi family for 2 days, and he only greeted me twice. I didn't see him at all. If he doesn't want to see me, I'll leave tomorrow." Before Ning Siyuan could finish, Qi Tanlong quickly interrupted and explained, "Miss Siyuan, you've misunderstood. Huanji misses you day and night and has deep feelings for you. How could he avoid meeting you? He's busy and has no time to leave. You also know that the martial arts competition is the day after tomorrow. He's busy with it." Qin Pei quickly nodded in agreement to help Qi Huanji. Ning Siyuan would not be fooled. She frowned slightly and said, "Huanji is no match for the young master. No matter how busy he is these days, it's useless. I heard that he has a wide circle of friends and has won over a group of strange people from all over the world. He often takes them to drink and have fun." She was obviously saying that Qi Huanji did not return home in the middle of the night and went out to fool around again. Qi Tianlong and Qin Pei were both very embarrassed. They were angry and wanted to beat Qi Huanji up right now. But the most important thing now was to clear Qi Huanji's name. How could they let Ning Siyuan misunderstand? Qin Pei quickly explained, "Siyuan, these are all rumors from the idle people in the city. Don't take them seriously. Huanji is a little slow, playful and undisciplined, but he's not a bad person. But his character is not bad. He is definitely not a frivolous playboy who indulges in wine and women." "Yes." Ning Siyuan nodded slightly and said indifferently, "It's best that he's not. Otherwise, he'll be criticized when he joins the Ning family." Before she could finish, hurried footsteps suddenly came from outside the hall. "Father! Mother! I have an idea." Qi Huanji's joyful voice could be heard from afar, even when they were still 1,000 feet away. Qi Tianlong, Qin Pei, Ning Siyuan, and the two maids immediately looked up at the entrance of the hall. Under everyone's gaze, Qi Huanji, whose face was flushed and slightly tipsy, walked quickly to the entrance of the hall. Behind him was a burly young man in a white robe from the Divine Clan. Obviously it was Ji Tianqing. The two of them were discussing in the Moonstar Pavilion. Ji Tianqing said that he could defeat Yuan Jia. Qi Huanji could not wait to drag him back to the Qi residence to tell his parents the good news. However, when he stepped into the hall with Ji Tianqing, he found that his parents' expressions were strange. Ning Siyuan's eyes were also a little cold. Chapter 2786. The hall fell into a brief silence. Qi Tianlong was the first to speak, breaking the silence. "Huanji, you were busy until late at night and couldn't accompany Miss Siyuan. Why aren't you apologizing?" Qi Huanji came to his senses and hurriedly bowed to Ning Siyuan. "Miss Siyuan, please forgive me for not being a good host." Ning Siyuan looked at him indifferently and said calmly, "Young Master Qi, you're too polite. I'm glad I didn't interrupt your drinking." Qi Huanji was stunned. Qi Tianlong and Qin Pei felt even more awkward, but they couldn't explain anything. It seemed that this misunderstanding couldn't be resolved. Ji Tianqing didn't say anything and secretly sized up Ning Siyuan. Just as he guessed, the silver-armored woman he met outside the city gate was Qi Huanji's fiancée. Qi Tianlong glared at Qi Huanji and shouted coldly, "You bastard, instead of coming home late at night, you're drinking yourself into a stupor outside. What are you doing? Go kneel in the ancestral hall now and apologize to Miss Siyuan when you're sober." Qi Tianlong was furious, and his divine lord aura swept toward Qi Huanji. He hated Qi Huanji for not living up to his expectations, but he also did it to appease Ning Siyuan's anger. After all, they were still trying to clear Qi Huanji's name. They didn't expect to be slapped in the face in the blink of an eye. Huh. Qi Huanji was stunned. He asked unwillingly, "Father, why are you punishing me again? I didn't do anything wrong. I only came back now because I was busy. Look, this is young Master Tianqing. He's the helper I found." Qi Huanji pointed sideways at Ji Tianqing as he spoke. Qi Tianlong, his wife, and Ning Siyuan immediately looked at Ji Tianqing. "It's him." Ning Siyuan muttered when she saw Ji Tianqing's face and remembered what happened outside the city gate. But she didn't say anything and looked coldly at Ji Tianqing. Qi Tianlong was enraged again and scolded sternly, You bastard! How many times have I told you don't bring those riffraff back home? What kind of people are they? They're just a bunch of swindlers and good-for-nothings. In the past, Chi of the family to the point that he had even built a special courtyard for them. For him. However, most of those strange people were scammers and scoundrels who only knew how to eat and drink. They had caused a lot of trouble for the Chi family. Naturally, Qi Tianlong hated Ji Tianxing. He pointed at him and ordered men drag this scoundrel out. Yes. Qi Huangji quickly spread out his arms and shielded Ji Tianxing behind him. He straightened his neck and said to Qi Tianlong, "Hold on. Father, this young Master Tianheng is different. I swear on my life that he's different from those dudes. He's trustworthy." Qi Tianlong was even more furious when he saw how much Qi Tianlong trusted Ji Tianxing. He scolded, "You bastard! Are you drunk? How could you be fooled by this person?" The martial arts competition concerns the fate of the Qi family. What can a swindler like him do? You unfilial son. I'm going to beat you up tonight. Qi Tianlong took out a Zidian whip and was about to teach Qi Tianji a lesson. He was furious and also wanted to save the Qi family's face. He didn't want Ning Xiyuan to despise him. After all, the Ning family didn't see how Qi Tianji fooled around in the past. But tonight was different. Ning Xiyuan saw it with her own eyes. Who knew what she would think? She would probably treat Qi Tianji as a retard. Slap! Qi Tianlong flicked his purple lightning whip and lashed out at Qi Huangji with a series of purple lightning arcs. Qi Tianji stood still and shouted stubbornly, "Father, I didn't do anything wrong." Qin Peipei was anxious. She pulled Qi Tianlong aside and pleaded for her son. "Master, please calm down." However, she was only a level 8 heaven god. How could she stop the furious Qi Tianlong? Ning Xiyuan stood at the side and watched everything coldly with an indifferent expression. The purple electric arc was about to hit Qi Tianji. His skin and flesh would be torn apart and his body would be charred black. At this moment, Ji Tianxing, who had been silent all this time, suddenly stepped forward and stood in front of Qi Tianji. Looking at the incoming purple lightning whip, he calmly stretched out his right hand and opened his 5 fingers to grab it. Bang! There was a muffled sound. The purple electric arc that lit up the hall was instantly extinguished. Ji Tianxing also grabbed Qi Tianlong's Zidian whip. No matter how the whip flickered, he was not affected at all. He held the Zidian whip without moving. The noisy hall suddenly quieted down. Qi Tianlong and Qin Peipei widened their eyes and stared at Ji Tianxing in disbelief. Ning Xiyuan, who was watching coldly from the sidelines, also raised his eyebrows slightly in surprise. Ji Tianxing looked straight at Qi Tianlong and said calmly, "Patriarch Qi, you're a family. If there's anything, you should sit down and talk. Don't disturb our esteemed guest." Qi Tianlong's anger dissipated and he immediately calmed down. He glanced at Ning Xiyuan and then looked deeply at Ji Tianxing. Only then did he put away the Zidian whip. No matter how angry he was, he knew that Ji Tianxing was right. Even if he killed Qi Tianji, it would not change anything. Instead, it would make Ning Xiyuan look down on the Qi family even more. Qi Tianji came to his senses and secretly gave Ji Tianxing a thumbs up. Then he stared at Qi Tianlong and said happily, "Father, do you see it now? Young Master Tianxing can catch your Zidian whip. It shows that he is extraordinary. He can definitely help us." Qi Tianlong sneered disdainfully and did not bother to explain. Ning Xiyuan said calmly, "Young Master Qi, you are Uncle Qi's son. How could he really hit you? He only used 20% of his strength." What she meant was that Qi Tianlong was acting and she could see through it. Qi Tianlong was ashamed and angry, but he could not defend himself. Qin Peipei quickly mediated and asked, "Huangji, how can this young master help us?" Qi Huangji smiled confidently and said, "We invite young Master Tianxing to represent the Qi family in the martial arts competition." Nonsense! Qi Tianlong was furious again and scolded sternly. "He is so young and he is not even a divine emperor. How can he be our young master? The martial arts competition is of great importance and the lifeline of the Qi family. How can we treat it like a game?" It was true that the governor's mansion and the aristocratic families all wanted to hire a young master. However, only a divine emperor could be a young master to protect the family at critical times. However, a divine emperor was an overlord. How could they be a young master? Even if someone was willing to be a young master, they would have to pay a high price in profit. Therefore, the 5 aristocratic families in the city could not find a suitable young master. Qi Huangji smiled and said, "Father, are you old and confused? If young Master Tianqing is a divine emperor, can he still participate in the martial arts competition?" "You unfilial son." Qi Tianlong was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He could not help but slap him again. Chapter 2787. Qin Peipei hurriedly patted Qi Tianlong's chest, persuading him to calm down. Ning Xiyuan didn't say a word, secretly releasing her divine sense and secret technique to probe Ji Tianqing's background. However, she couldn't see through Ji Tianqing at all. Everything in front of her was white. Not only could she not see through Ji Tianqing's strength, but she also couldn't see through his true identity. Qi Huangji took the opportunity to persuade Qi Tianlong, "Father, the 5 great families have lost for 60 years anyway, and no one is Yuan Jie's match. If nothing unexpected happens, we will lose again the day after tomorrow. Trust your son this time and give young Master Tianqing a chance. I believe that he can definitely defeat Yuan Jie and help us win the profound light cave." "Humph." Qi Tianlong coldly snorted and said with a cold face, "You don't have to worry about this matter. I have already contacted Bloodsword Sect's Deacon Yi, and he will help us solve this matter." Calculating the time, Deacon Yi would arrive before noon tomorrow. "Give your friend 100,000 divine stones and let him leave the Qi family." Qi Tianlong waved his hand and ordered him to leave on the spot. Qi Huangji immediately became anxious and hurriedly shouted, "Father, how can you do this? Not only are you humiliating my friend, but you are also humiliating me." Qi Tianlong left with Qin Peipei, and when he passed by him, he sneered, "You good-for-nothing thing. Are you worthy of being humiliated by your father?" Qi Huangji's vision darkened, and his heart ached like a knife. After a while, Qi Tianlong and his wife left. Ning Xiyuan took a deep look at Ji Tianqing before leaving with her 2 maids. At the entrance of the hall, only Qi Huangji and Ji Tianqing were left. Ji Tianqing patted him on the shoulder and said, "Let's go back to the Star Moon Pavilion first." "No." Qi Huangji shook his head and said stubbornly, "If I really let you go to the Star Moon Pavilion, wouldn't I be fulfilling my father's wishes? He wants you to leave, so I must make you stay. Let's go to the mystical scholar courtyard." Then, without waiting for Ji Tianqing's agreement, he pulled him and flew to the backyard. The backyard was a garden with a radius of 3,000 feet. There was a small hill, a small lake, and a forest of pine and bamboo. The eccentric scholar's courtyard was at the back of the garden. This was the most remote place in the Qi residence. Normally, the Qi family's disciples and servants would not dare to approach this place. The front courtyard of the Qi mansion was brightly lit, but the mystical courtyard only had a few lonely lamps, making it seem very dark and quiet. This residence was rather large, with a radius of at least 1,000 feet. In the middle was the main hall, and on both sides were more than 30 guest rooms, all of which were equipped with secret rooms. Qi Huangji led Ji Tianqing into the main hall, and sat down in the reception hall. The guard at the door hurriedly went to make tea. At this moment, a dark-skinned old man with unkempt hair and greasy clothes rushed into the living room and shouted excitedly, "Young Master Qi, you're finally back. Quick! Come with me, I have a new invention." As he spoke, the dark and skinny old man pulled Qi Huangji away. Ji Tianqing took a closer look. This old man looked like a chimpanzee, and his hair was as messy as a chicken's nest. He was wearing a high-quality blue robe woven with gold, but it had not been changed for several years. A thick layer of mud had formed on it. Without a doubt, this was one of the eccentrics that Qi Huangji had recruited. Ji Tianqing suddenly understood why Qi Tianlong was furious and hated eccentric so much. The old man was in high spirits, but Qi Huangji broke free from his claws and asked with a frown, "Old Black, you've been in seclusion for 2.5 years. What have you come up with this time?" The old man excitedly showed off his achievements and said proudly, I've improved the design of the previous heavenly secret umbrella. Now, not only can it teleport thousands of miles, it can also release 3 types of divine abilities and 9 types of hidden weapons. Its lethality has increased exponentially. The most exciting thing is that I've added a space inside that can store a huge amount of delicacies and divine wine. Qi Huangji was a little surprised. What's the use of that? The old man said anxiously, how is it useless? Think about it, you'll use the heavenly secret umbrella to kill your enemies and make them piss their pants. Kneel down and beg for mercy. At that time you'll be able to put out a table full of delicacies and divine wine with just a thought. While eating and drinking you'll watch your enemies piss their pants. Watch your enemies kneel down and beg for mercy. Think about it, how majestic and ostentatious that scene is. Isn't this very much in line with the style of young Master Qi? Let your glorious image be remembered by your enemies forever? Qi Huangji did not know whether to laugh or cry. He nodded reluctantly and said, yes, what you said makes sense. Then what are you waiting for? Come with me to admire it. The old man was encouraged and could not wait to pull him out of the living room. Qi Huangji hurriedly waved his hand and comforted him. Old Black, I have important things to do. You go and study it first and perfect it. He tried his best to appease the old man. Unexpectedly, as soon as the old black devil left, another strong man with red scales all over his body stepped into the living room with a giant sword. Young Master Qi, I've been waiting for you for a long time. When you begged me to stay in the Qi family, it was because of the once-in-a-decade martial arts competition. I've been cultivating in seclusion for the past 10 years, and I've finally mastered the red wave swordsmanship. Now please admire my peerless swordsmanship. The strong man was more than 10 feet tall. He had a huge head and a big mouth. His limbs were sharp claws, and he had a big tail behind him. He looked a little like a crocodile, but he was related to the dragon race by blood. This was the warrior of the crocodile dragon race. He was violent and warlike by nature. He was just speaking normally, but his voice was too loud. It was like a bell, shaking the living room. Red Crocodile, you've mastered the swordsmanship? Qi Huangji stood up in surprise and looked at the red crocodile with shining eyes. However, he soon came to his senses and glanced at Ji Tianqing with a guilty look. It felt like a man meeting his first wife, but there was a mistress by his side. The red crocodile's eyes also fell on Ji Tianqing. He looked at him maliciously and asked, Young Master Qi, who is this guy? Don't tell me he's a whore you brought back from drinking outside? Qi Huangji was confused. Ji Tianqing did not want to meddle in other people's business. However, when he heard the words whore friend, his eyes turned gloomy. I'm young Master Qi's friend. I'm here to participate in the martial arts competition on behalf of the Qi family, he said in a deep voice. The red crocodile squinted his eyes. His blood-red eyes were burning with a strong desire to fight. Ha 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 ha. You pretty boy, how dare you lie to young Master Qi with your drunken look? How did you defeat Yuan Jia? With your face. Or offer your ass to Yuan Jia? Ji Tianqing smiled and raised his right hand. He said coldly, with my fist. As soon as he finished speaking, he clenched his right hand into a fist and punched the red crocodile with a golden fist. The red crocodile's expression changed. He instinctively held his giant sword in front of his chest. Bam! A muffled sound was heard. The red crocodile was sent flying. He crashed into a wall and fell into the small lake in the garden, creating a huge splash. He was at the same cultivation level as the red crocodile, so he had fought with it before. In the end, the two people only exchanged 30 moves, and he was defeated by the crimson crocodile. Qi Huangji saw hope and thought that red crocodile had a chance to defeat Yuan Jia, so he spent a lot of money to recruit him. In these 9 years, he provided abundant cultivation resources for the scarlet crocodile and paid a considerable price. From the looks of it now, it was all a waste. Qi Huangji flew to Ji Tianqing's side and said joyfully, Brother Tianqing, you've really hidden your strength well. I'm afraid only you can defeat Yuan Jia. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and pointed at the scarlet crocodile under his feet. He asked, "How do you plan to deal with this crocodile dragon?" Qi Huangji thought for a moment and cupped his hands at the scarlet crocodile. He said, "Brother Scarlet Crocodile, although you can't help me, I've treated you well these 9 years. After tonight we're even. You can leave." After saying that, he took out a jade bottle and handed it to the scarlet crocodile. "Brother Scarlet Crocodile, there are 2 monarch-grade divine pellets in here. They can be used to heal your injuries." 2 monarch-grade divine pellets were worth a few million divine stones. Ji Tianqing saw Qi Huangji's actions and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Luckily, the Qi family is rich enough. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to withstand such a prodigal. Of course, this was Qi Huangji's matter. He wouldn't interfere. He lifted his right foot and let the scarlet crocodile go. The scarlet crocodile quickly got up and took Qi Huangji's medicine bottle. He grinned coldly and said, "Young Master Qi, since you don't need me, then I'll take my leave." After saying that, he glared at Ji Tianqing with resentment and said in a deep voice, "Kid, I'll remember you." He enjoyed the treatment of a consecrator in the Qi family, and didn't have to worry about cultivation resources. His days were very carefree. But tonight Ji Tianqing ruined his beautiful life. Cutting off one's path to wealth was like killing one's parents. This enmity was formed. Ji Tianqing glanced at him and couldn't be bothered to pay attention. The scarlet crocodile carried the giant sword and left the mystical scholar courtyard dejectedly. Soon he disappeared into the night. Qi Huangji was still immersed in joy. He was so excited that he couldn't extricate himself. Ji Tianqing pointed at the ruins and said, "I'm sorry for destroying your mystical scholar courtyard." It's fine, it's fine." Qi Huangji waved his hand and said indifferently, "I'll get the craftsman to repair it later. It will be completed in 2 days. This loss is nothing. To be able to get Brother Tianqing's help, even if I have to destroy 100 mystical scholar courtyards, I'm willing." Ji Tianqing smiled and said, "But we don't have a place to stay tonight." Qi Huangji scratched his head and said, "Why don't we go back to the Star Moon Pavilion?" "Okay." Ji Tianqing nodded in agreement. 15 minutes later, the two returned to the Star Moon Pavilion and entered Cholan Courtyard. Qi Huangji was in a good mood. He asked 2 maids to bring wine and dishes and wanted to drink with Ji Tianqing again. Ji Tianqing pressed down on the wine pot and asked seriously, "Young Master Qi, what's the blood sword sect that your father mentioned?" Qi Huangji was stunned. He quickly put down the wine cup and said with a serious expression, "The blood sword sect is one of the 6 great sects of the blood flame divine country. Not to mention Azure Mountain City and Azure Mountain City, even Tianfeng City has to be respectful to the blood sword sect. The blood sword sect has 9 divine monarchs and the sect master's strength can be ranked in the top 10 of the blood flame divine country. Anyone who can obtain the protection of the blood sword sect will not only have a prosperous business, but their status will also rise." Ji Tianqing roughly understood. "Your father said that Deacon Yi will arrive before noon tomorrow? Did your father ask Deacon Yi for help and make some kind of deal?" Qi Huangji nodded and said, "My father did business in Tianfeng City and cooperated with Deacon Yi twice, so we have some friendship. My father was forced to seek Deacon Ye's help this time. He is a divine monarch and has a high status in the blood sword sect, second only to the elders." Ji Tianqing frowned and said, "Divine monarchs can't participate in the martial competition. Of course it won't be Deacon Yi." Qi Huangji waved his hand and said, "I think Deacon Yi will bring a genius disciple and pretend to be a branch disciple of our Qi family. However, I don't think there's much hope. No matter how outstanding the blood sword sect's disciple is, he might not be Yuan Jie's opponent. Besides, the blood sword sect is a force that eats people without spitting out the bones. They won't help us for no reason. I'm worried that Deacon Yi will take advantage of my father again." Chapter 2789. Ji Tianqing could tell. Qi Huangji was sometimes muddle-headed and absurd, but sometimes righteous and generous. In fact, he was sometimes childish and stubborn. Regardless, Qi Huangji was no fool. He did not have high hopes for Deacon Yi, who was coming tomorrow. Don't worry, Brother Tianxing. I'll explain the situation to my father and invite you to participate in the martial competition as a venerate. We'll try not to use the blood sword sect as much as possible. My father isn't muddle-headed. He should understand. Ji Tianxing smiled and said, Young Master Qi, you worry too much. I'm only willing to help you because you're forthright and righteous. I don't care if you're a venerate or not. Hey, Brother Tianxing, don't say that. Qi Huangji hurriedly waved his hand and said, I've decided to invite you to be a venerate of the Qi family, and I won't change my mind. Only then can we justify it and shut the mouths of the other aristocratic families. Moreover, you've helped us take back Mystic Light Cave. That's a huge favor. No matter what requests or difficulties you have, as long as the Qi family can do it, we'll do it. Ji Tianxing smiled and said, It's still too early to talk about this. Let's talk about it after the matter is settled. Hence, the two of them chatted for a while more before they went to rest. The next day, Qi Huangji only woke up late in the morning and asked Ji Tianxing to go to the Qi family with him. Ji Tianxing declined, saying that it was inconvenient for him to show up for the time being, and that he would wait for news in the Star Moon Pavilion. Qi Huangji guessed that it had something to do with the Blood Sword sect and did not insist. He left the Star Moon Pavilion alone and rushed back to the Qi residence. Qi Huangji returned to the Qi residence. As soon as he entered the courtyard, he saw two house-sized fire sparrows standing in the courtyard. He knew at a glance that they were the mounts of the Blood Sword sect. As expected, in the conference hall of the main hall, Qi Tianlong was entertaining two distinguished guests. Qin Peipei and Ning Xiyuan were not in the hall. The two guests from the Blood Sword sect were led by a thin man in a black robe with a mustache that resembled the character 8. This person was a member of the Great Yin Divine Clan. His face was thin, and his eyes were sharp and bright. He gave off a sinister aura. Qi Huangji could tell that this person was Deacon Yi. The other guest was a handsome young man from the Great Yin Divine Clan who was nearly 10 feet tall. This person wore a fiery red robe, and his purple hair was tied into a ponytail. There was a green divine jade belt around his waist, and he looked very free and easy. Of course, this handsome red-robed youth was extremely cold and arrogant. He held a purple divine sword in his arms and sat on a chair with his eyes closed. He ignored Qi Tianlong and wanted to turn his nose up at the sky. Qi Huangji sized him up and saw that he was a half-step divine monarch, so he understood his identity. A genius disciple of the Blood Sword sect. At this moment, Qi Tianlong saw Qi Anji outside the hall and shouted, Anji, come and greet Uncle Yi and Senior Brother Mu. Qi Huangji was displeased, but he could only force himself to enter the main hall and bow. Nephew Qi Huangji greets Uncle Yi. Deacon Yi stroked his mustache and nodded at him without saying anything. Qi Huangji bowed at the red-robed youth. Huangji greets Senior Brother Mu. The red-robed youth still had his eyes closed and did not respond. He ignored Qi Huangji. The atmosphere was slightly awkward, but Qi Tianlong could not be too harsh. Deacon Yi smiled and explained, Mu Yi is the fourth elder's last disciple and one of the 5 most outstanding geniuses in the sect. He was born like this and the elders can't do anything about it. Please don't blame him, Patriarch Qi. In other words, Mu Yi was a genius of the sect and was used to being arrogant. It was normal for him to ignore them. Qi Tianlong smiled and said, It's normal for a young genius to be arrogant. Then he looked at Qi Huangji and said, Huangji, Father and Deacon Yi are discussing important matters. Sit down and listen. Qi Huangji nodded in agreement and took a seat at the head of the table. At this moment Deacon Yi said, Patriarch Qi, let's continue our conversation. This is Mu Ye's first time in Azure Mountain City, so you can rest assured that the other aristocratic families won't see through his identity. Moreover, even if the 4 aristocratic families and the city lord's mansion find out Mu Ye's identity, they won't dare to become enemies with our Blood Sword sect. Mu Ye's true strength is stronger than Yuan Jie's, so he will definitely help the Qi family take back the Profound Light Cave. Qi Tianlong was overjoyed. Without any worries, he quickly nodded and said, That's good. 70 years ago, it was our Qi family and the Qi family who discovered the Profound Light Cave. Who would have thought that the city lord's mansion would benefit from it and mine it for 70 years? This time, the Qi family must take back the profound light cave that originally belonged to us. Deacon Yi stroked his beard and said with a smile, "Since this matter will definitely succeed, let's talk about the price. After this matter is done, the Qi family will be responsible for mining the profound light cave, but we want 70% of the divine stones and resources produced every year. Moreover, the Qi family must pledge allegiance to our sect and work for us." Qi Tianlong and Qi Huangji's expressions immediately changed. One had a solemn expression, while the other was angry. Qi Tianlong coughed lightly and squeezed out a smile, saying, "Deacon Yi, isn't this condition a bit too harsh?" Our Qi family will be responsible for mining and will need a lot of manpower and resources, but we can only get 30%? As for pledging allegiance to the Blood Sword sect, this matter can be discussed later. What do you think? Deacon Yi smiled and shook his head, saying, "Our sect has a large business and tens of thousands of disciples to support. We must take 70%. This is also the opinion of the elders. There's no room for discussion. Moreover, after the Qi family pledges allegiance to our sect, you will receive our protection and your business will be even more prosperous in the future." Qi Tianlong's face sank. He was well aware that the Blood Sword sect was taking advantage of the situation. Moreover, once the Qi family pledged allegiance to the Blood Sword sect, they would become the Blood Sword sect's bank and servant. The Blood Sword sect would have to give them money and manpower whenever they wanted. With the protection of the Blood Sword sect, the Qi family's business would indeed rise to another level. However, no matter how much money the Qi family earned, it would still be to serve the Blood Sword sect. After a moment of silence, Qi Tianlong probed, "Deacon Yi, can you take a step back for the sake of our friendship? Why don't we split it 50-50? Deacon Yi raised his eyebrows and sneered playfully, "Patriarch Qi, I'm afraid you won't be able to achieve great things with such indecisiveness. I won't hide it from you. Not only did your Qi family contact me, but the Qi family and Lu family also invited me to be a guest. If you don't want to seize this opportunity, then I can only take my leave and make a trip to the Qi family and Lu family. Patriarch Qi, for the sake of our past relationship, I'll give you 10 breaths of time to consider." Qi Tianlong's expression changed, and a deep hatred flashed in his eyes. He didn't expect that the other two families would also contact Deacon Yi. This was troublesome. Before he could say anything, the furious Qi Huangji couldn't hold back and coldly shouted, "Deacon Yi, you're looting a burning house. You've gone too far. Won't your shameless actions tarnish the reputation of the Blood Sword sect?" Mu Yi, who had been resting with his eyes closed, suddenly opened them. He coldly glanced at Qi Huangji and sneered, "A frog at the bottom of a well dares to criticize a deacon of our sect? Trash! I'll make you kneel and beg for mercy on the stage tomorrow." Chapter 2790. The moment Qi Huangji opened his mouth, it meant that the negotiation between the two sides had failed. Mu Yi said ruthlessly, got up and left with the divine sword in his arms. Deacon Yi was too lazy to bow and say goodbye. He waved his sleeves and left the main hall. Qi Tianlong was unwilling to give up. He wanted to catch up with Deacon Yi and ask him to make an exception. But Qi Huangji was full of vigor and pulled him back. Deacon Yi also swaggered away without any intention of stopping. After a while, Deacon Yi and Mu Yi left the Qi family. In the meeting hall, only Qi Tianlong and his son were left. This time Qi Tianlong was not angry, nor did he scold Qi Huangji. Like a deflated ball, he fell into a chair with a dejected look and looked at Qi Huangji with dim eyes. "Forget it. Our Qi family doesn't have that kind of life, and we can't keep the great wealth of the mysterious light cave. Anyway, in the past 70 years we didn't get the mysterious light cave." Seeing his father's look of despair, Qi Huangji quickly persuaded, "Father, don't be discouraged, I still have a way." Without waiting for him to finish, Qi Tianlong continued, "Huangji, although you act absurdly, you still have the courage of the Qi family. Father is comforted. Go and prepare for tomorrow's martial arts competition. Even if we can't beat them, we have to fight on the stage. Even if we lose, we have to try our best to be dignified." Qi Huangji didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He quickly comforted, "Father, don't say that. We still have hope. I'll ask young Master Tianqing to come over right away. Let's plan this matter well. Qi Tianlong suddenly frowned and shouted in a deep voice, "That boy last night? Didn't I ask you to give him 100,000 godstones and send him away?" "Father." Shi Huangji shouted with a solemn face and said righteously, "Can't you trust me this once? Just this once. Do you still remember the red crocodile I recruited 9 years ago?" Qi Tianlong saw his son's solemn expression, sat up straight and nodded. "Of course I remember. That red crocodile's combat strength is good. Much stronger than yours. But it's hopeless to count on him to deal with Yuan Jia." Shi Huangji revealed a proud smile and said confidently, "Last night, young Master Tianqing exchanged 2 blows with him and destroyed the entire mystical scholar's courtyard. Yes, that foul place, it's good that it's destroyed." Qi Tianlong nodded happily. Shi Huangji was speechless and his face darkened. However, this was not the main point. He was too lazy to waste his breath on his father and continued, "Father, what do you think the result is? The red crocodile won?" Qi Tianlong raised his eyebrows and asked. "No." Shi Huangji quickly shook his head and held up 2 fingers. He laughed and said, "Child Tianqing has won. Furthermore, he only used 2 moves and severely injured the scarlet crocodile." Qi Tianlong's body stiffened. His eyes widened in disbelief. That kid only used 2 moves to defeat the crimson crocodile? Of course. Shi Huangji nodded excitedly and added, "I saw it with my own eyes." Qi Tianlong fell silent. After frowning and pondering for a moment, he nodded slightly and said, "Since that's the case, that kid does have some ability. Although he may not be able to defeat Yuan Jia and Mu Yi, it's not hopeless." Shi Huangji patted his chest and said, "Father, I can guarantee that Yuan Jia and Mu Yi are no match for him. Don't be so sure." Qi Tianlong glanced at him and said in a deep voice, "I can trust you this time and allow that kid to participate in the battle for the Qi family. However, you have to ask him what his conditions are first." Shi Huangji replied without hesitation, "He will be our Qi family's consecrator." Qi Tianlong frowned and slammed his palm on the table. He scolded, "Nonsense. What right does a kid have to be our Qi family's consecrator? There's no room for discussion. At most, we will give him 20 million godstones. If he succeeds and helps the Qi family win the Dark Light Cave, we will reward him with another 100 million godstones." Shi Huangji fell silent and stared at Qi Tianlong with a strange expression. Qi Tianlong looked up and found that his son's eyes were full of contempt and disdain. He flew into a rage and shouted, "Unfilial son, what is the meaning of this?" Shi Huangji sneered and shook his head. "Deacon Yi is so arrogant. He wants 70% of the Dark Light Cave's output, and wants our Qi family to be the Bloodsword sect's lackey. You actually want to consider and negotiate with him for such despicable and shameless conditions? And now young Master Tianqing can help us win the Dark Light Cave, but you are so stingy. 20 million godstones? Are you trying to dismiss a beggar? Qi Tianlong, I used to be proud of you. But now haha." Shi Huangji sneered contemptuously and turned to leave. This was the first time in his life that he had called his father by his name and humiliated his father to his face. Qi Tianlong was stunned on the spot and stared at him in disbelief. After coming back to his senses, Qi Tianlong flew into a rage. His face was ashen and he almost drew his sword. "Unfilial son. You unfilial son." However, after roaring twice, Qi Tianlong gradually calmed down. "Qi Huangji, stop right there." He suddenly stood up and shouted in a dignified tone. Qi Huangji stopped in his tracks, turned around, and looked at him expressionlessly. Qi Tianlong clenched his teeth and made up his mind. He shouted, "Fine. You unfilial son, you're all grown up now. I'll believe you this time and give you a chance to make him a consecrator." Qi Huangji was stunned for a moment. Then his face was full of joy. He bowed and said, "I thank you on behalf of young Master Tianqing." Qi Tianlong was even more annoyed when he saw his expression change so quickly. He scolded, "What are you waiting for? Go and bring him here." "Yes, sir," Qi Huangji replied, then turned around and ran off happily. Qi Tianlong watched his back disappear and muttered angrily, Sooner or later, I'll be angered to death by this unfilial son. Half an hour later, Qi Huangji took Ji Tianqing and stepped into the Qi mansion once again. At this time, Qi Tianlong had already calmed down and was sitting in the study waiting. Qi Huangji took Ji Tianqing directly to the study to discuss the matter. After the two sides met, there was no greeting or pleasantries. Ji Tianqing cupped his hands and Qi Tianlong nodded as a greeting. After Qi Huangji and Ji Tianqing sat down, Qi Tianlong asked directly, "Young Master Tianqing, how confident are you in defeating Yuan Jie?" 100%, Ji Tianqing said with an indifferent expression. Qi Tianlong frowned, feeling that he was unreliable. He looked quiet and low-key, but in fact, he was confident and arrogant. Qi Tianlong asked again, "Now besides Yuan Jie, there's another strong enemy, the genius disciple of the Bloodsword sect, Mu Yi. He's also a half-step divine lord. Are you confident in defeating him?" 100%. Ji Tianqing's expression didn't change as he repeated the two words. Qi Tianlong was so angry that his eyebrows twitched. He shouted angrily, "You haven't even seen Mu Yi and you dare to boast like this? Kid, are you too arrogant? Or do you take me for a fool?" Ji Tianqing was still calm and said calmly, "I'm invincible below the divine lord level." Chapter 2791. Qi Huangji was stunned. His eyes widened as he stared at Ji Tianqing in awe. He was so excited that his body trembled. "Brother, you're awesome." He gave Ji Tianqing a thumbs up and roared in his heart. Qi Tianlong stood up with a swoosh. He was so angry that he laughed. "Ha ha ha. What an arrogant and ignorant boy. I've lived for more than 5,000 years and I've never seen anyone more arrogant than you." Qi Tianlong regretted agreeing to Qi Huangji's request. He even wanted to hang Qi Huangji up and give him a good beating. Qi Huangji was so stupid that he found a lunatic to serve him. He was the head of the Qi family, a divine lord. How could he agree to such a crazy request? Was the world crazy? The atmosphere in the study was strange. Qi Tianlong and his son were both agitated. One was excited while the other was furious. Only Ji Tianqing was still sitting there calmly, without the slightest fluctuation in his emotions. He even picked up the teacup and slowly took a sip. At this moment, a clear and melodious voice came from outside the study. "Invincible below the divine lord level." As the voice fell, a graceful silver figure appeared at the door of the study. It was Ning Xiyuan. As usual, she was wearing a silver armor without a helmet. In all fairness, she was indeed a rare beauty. Even though she was wearing silver armor, her figure was still hot. It was unknown how many young men adored such a noble and valiant beauty. Ning Xiyuan stepped into the study and bowed to Qi Tianlong. "Uncle, I was just passing by. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. Please forgive me." Qi Tianlong's anger dissipated. He quickly said, "Miss Xiyuan, you're too polite. You're the daughter-in-law of the Qi family. It's only right that you participate in this matter. This is a serious matter. I'd like to hear your opinion." He was in a difficult position. Since Ning Xiyuan wanted to help him, he was grateful. Now he liked this daughter-in-law more and more. Qi Huangji glanced at Ning Xiyuan and asked unhappily, "Miss Ning, what are you trying to do?" Ning Xiyuan said expressionlessly, "Young Master Qi, if you want to invite a consecrator, this is your Qi family's matter. Naturally, I won't interfere." However, young Master Tianqing's words were shocking, and he looked down on all the talents in the world. "As luck would have it, I'm a half-step divine lord, so I want to experience Sir Tianqing's strength." Qi Huangji's expression changed, and a look of worry appeared in his eyes. Of course he knew that this ice beauty Ning Xiyuan was terrifyingly strong. At least he was stronger than Yuan Jie. Qi Huangji was a little hesitant, but Qi Tianlong was full of joy. He hurriedly echoed, "Yes. Miss Xiyuan was one of the top 5 geniuses in Tianxue County. If this young Master Tianqing can't even beat young Miss Xiyuan, what right does he have to be arrogant?" Ning Xiyuan nodded slightly and looked straight at Ji Tianqing. She said in a low voice, "Young Master Tianqing, please enlighten me." Qi Huangji hurriedly stood up and was about to stop him. Ji Tianqing waved his hand, indicating that he did not need to worry. Since Miss Ning wants to test my strength, I'll naturally accompany you. My bold words can only be verified by the failure of some geniuses. As he spoke, Ji Tianqing stood up and walked out of the study. Young Master Qi, is there a suitable place for the martial arts competition? I'm afraid that the entire Qi family will be destroyed when the fight starts. Qi Tonglong hurriedly said, let's go to the martial arts arena. I've set up a monarch-grade divine formation there. You can fight without worry. Thus, the four of them hurried to the martial arts arena. Under Qi Tianlong's instructions, the news quickly spread in the Qi family. Hundreds of Qi family disciples and Ning Xiyuan's guards all rushed to the martial arts arena to watch the fight. The martial arts arena of the Qi family occupied an area of 10,000 feet and could accommodate thousands of people. There was also an arena that looked like a pale blue ball of light. It was only 100 feet wide. In reality, the arena was protected by 3 monarch-grade divine formations, and the space inside was 1,000 miles wide. Immortals below the Divine Lord realm could fight without worry as the aftermath would not spread out. 15 minutes later, more than 100 people gathered around the arena. They were all experts of the Qi family and Ning Xiyuan's guards. When the crowd heard the cause of the incident, they carefully sized up Ji Tianqing and commented on him. They took pleasure in his misfortune. This kid looks ordinary. What qualifications does he have to be our Qi family's consecrator? He must be a swindler. After all, he was hired by the eldest young master. He dares to boast that he is invincible below the Divine Lord realm. Isn't he afraid that the wind will cut his tongue? Haha. He was just bragging, and in the blink of an eye, he was slapped in the face by Miss Xiyuan. How laughable. Miss Xiyuan is the 5th genius of Tianxua County. She is a true genius. I bet that kid will lose within 3 moves at most. Tis. You are underestimating Miss Xiyuan. 2 moves at most. 1 move. Miss Xiyuan only needs 1 move to defeat that kid. The crowd was discussing excitedly. Moreover, their voices were very loud. They did not mind that Ji Tianqing was present and mocked him. Ji Tianqing turned a deaf ear to them and remained calm. Qi Huangji, on the other hand, was furious. His face darkened and he secretly made a note of those who mocked him. Humph. After this matter is over, this young master will settle the score with you. Ning Xiyuan glanced at Ji Tianqing and thought to himself, this person's temperament is as calm as water. Qi Tianlong was also observing him. He secretly sneered, kid, it's useless to pretend to be calm. Your true colors will be revealed soon. At this moment, Ji Tianqing stepped onto the arena and turned around to beckon Ning Xiyuan with his finger. This frivolous gesture made Ning Xiyuan frown and his eyes turn cold. The Qi's and Ning family guards' faces changed and they cursed Ji Tianqing furiously. Qi Huangji was not angry. Instead, he was secretly pleased. Ning Xiyuan, oh Ning Xiyuan, you are always so arrogant and disdainful of me. Later, Brother Tianqing will teach you a lesson and make you beg for mercy. It will be very exciting, right? When he thought of this, Qi Huangji's face changed and he muttered to himself, someone is humiliating my fiancé. Why am I not angry? Instead, I am happy. This is not right. Forget it. I don't care if it is right or not. As long as I feel good, that's all that matters. At the same time, Ning Xiyuan stepped onto the arena. The two of them were standing 100 miles away from each other in the battling space that was 1,000 miles in radius. After they saluted each other, the battle began. Ning Xiyuan was the first to attack. He turned into a silver stream of light and shot out dozens of fist radiances toward Ji Tianqing. The mountain-like silver fist radiances were like meteors falling from the sky. They were extremely powerful. Ji Tianqing stood on the spot and did not dodge. He only raised his fist slowly when the meteors fell in front of him. He activated the power of 14 laws and compressed his divine power to the extreme. He used all his strength to create 2 illusory images of dragons and elephants to fight against Ning Xiyuan. Dragon Elephant Divine Fist. Qi Huangji was in a good mood and did not care about his father's reprimand. He quickly asked, "Father, you have no objections now, right?" "Yes." Qi Tianlong nodded and said with relief, "You've done so many ridiculous things, but you're finally smart for once. I promise you that young Master Tianqing will be our Qi family's honorary elder." Qi Huangji smiled triumphantly. At this time, Ji Tianqing left the arena and came to his side. Therefore, he said to Qi Tianlong, "Father, let's go to the study now and settle this matter. Tomorrow is the martial arts competition we have to prepare." Qi Tianlong waved his hand and said, "You little brat, how can you be so heartless? Miss Ning is injured. As her fiancé, you should go and visit her now. I'll talk to young Master Tianqing about the honorary elder." After that, Qi Tianlong was about to send him away. How could Qi Huangji agree? "Father, Miss Ning is proud and arrogant. Now that she is injured and defeated, she must be in a bad mood. If I go and visit her now, she will definitely misunderstand that I'm going to mock her. Let's ignore her and talk about business first." Qi Tianlong was helpless. He could only bring him and Ji Tianqing to the study to discuss the matter. After the three of them left, more than 100 spectators gradually left the arena. However, the crowd gathered in groups of 3 to 5 and were still discussing the battle. The name young Master Tianqing was firmly etched in everyone's mind. Chapter 2793. In the Patriarch's study, Qi Tianlong was sitting at the head of the table. On the jade table in front of him was a contract and the Patriarch's seal. Inviting a consecrator was a very formal and grand affair. Not only did both parties have to discuss the benefits, but they also had to sign a contract. Qi Tianlong looked at Ji Tianqing and said seriously, "Young Master Tianqing, I didn't see you fight before, so I misunderstood you. Please forgive me. Tomorrow is the martial arts competition, so let's settle this today and not go through so many formalities." Ji Tianqing sat on the big chair and drank tea. He nodded calmly. Qi Huangji stood at the side, looking like a little follower. He admired Ji Tianqing a lot. Qi Tianlong frowned, but he did not say anything. Ahem. He cleared his throat and said seriously, "Young Master Tianqing, the Qi family has not invited a consecrator for the past 100 years. So, we will pay you according to the standards of other families. From now on, the Qi family will give you 30 million divine stones or resources of the same value every year. In addition, if you make any contributions to the Qi family, there will be other rewards. What you need to do is to stay in the Qi family, follow the Qi family's decisions and arrangements, and protect and help the Qi family to grow stronger. We must work together." Before Qi Tianlong could finish his sentence, Qi Huangji interrupted him with a frown. "Father, 30 million divine stones a year? Aren't you too stingy? The consecrator invited by the city lord's mansion gets 50 million divine stones a year. We are the richest family in Green Mountain City, so we have to give him 60 million. Before Ji Tianqing could even talk about the price, Qi Huangji took the initiative to raise the price. Qi Tianlong was so angry that his liver hurt. He glared at his son and scolded, "Unfilial son, whose side are you on?" Qi Huangji shrunk his neck and whispered, "If young Master Tianqing is the Qi family's consecrator, we will be a family. How much benefits do you have to offer them in order to get them to help us?" Although his voice was not loud, Qi Tianlong and Ji Tianqing were both strong, so they naturally heard him clearly. Ji Tianqing couldn't help but smile. Qi Tianlong was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He glared fiercely at Qi Huangji and shouted coldly, "Then 50 million a year. Are you satisfied?" "That's more like it," Qi Huangji muttered again. Qi Tianlong was so angry that his hands trembled. He grabbed the Patriarch's seal and wanted to smash it on Qi Huangji's face. Qi Huangji did not sense the danger and hurriedly urged, "Father, quickly stamp the seal and this matter will be done." Qi Tianlong's face turned even darker. He took a deep breath and said in his heart, "I'll endure it. After all, she's his biological daughter." Moments later, Qi Tianlong and Ji Tianqing signed the contract under the witness of Qi Huangji. Two contracts, one for each person. Qi Tianlong saluted Ji Tianqing and said with a smile, Young Master Tianqing, we're a family from now on. I hope you'll put in more effort to help the Qi family to a higher level. Ji Tianqing also saluted back and said, It's my duty. I'll do my best. Qi Tianlong nodded with satisfaction and ordered Huanji empty the west courtyard. That will be the residence of high official Tianqing in the future. Also, send 2 younger and prettier maids to keep an eye on high official Tianqing's daily life. Qi Huanji frowned and said, Father, the west courtyard has been empty for more than 10 years and has been used as a warehouse. How can we let young Master Tianqing live there? Since my eccentric courtyard is being rebuilt, I'll ask the craftsmen to put in more effort to build a more luxurious high official courtyard for young Master Tianqing to live in. As for the maids, young Master Tianqing has never been close to women. He doesn't even touch the fox god maids in Xingyue Pavilion. There's no need to arrange for them. Qi Tianlong's 2 decisions were overturned by his son on the spot. Moreover, Qi Huanji overstepped his authority and arranged a residence for Ji Tianqing. Qi Tianlong was so angry that he gritted his teeth, but he had to maintain his composure. He smiled and said, All right, then we'll do as you say. Qi Huanji nodded happily and said, Father, then you go ahead with your work. I'll show Tianqing around. Go. Qi Tianlong waved his hand impatiently and hurriedly sent Qi Huanji away. Qi Tianlong couldn't help but want to beat him up if he looked at him or listened to him speak. Then Qi Huanji led Ji Tianqing out of the study and strolled around the Qi residence. Qi Tianlong also called the housekeeper and guards to spread the news of the high official so that everyone in the residence knew. Although the Qi residence was very big, with more than 4,000 people, the news spread quickly. However, the news spread very quickly. In less than 2 hours, almost everyone knew that the Qi clan had invited a young consecrator. Not long after, another piece of news spread in the residence. The young consecrator had a round of sparring with Ning Xiyuan. The 2 of them had only exchanged 1 move in the arena, and Ning Xiyuan had been defeated. This news was like a heavy bomb that was dropped into a lake, causing a huge uproar. When many people heard the news, their first reaction was disbelief and absurdity. However, more than 100 people had seen the fight with their own eyes, proving that the news was true. The thousands of people in the Qi residence were shocked, and they were full of anticipation and curiosity toward the young high official. The Qi residence's disciples, servants, and guards were all discussing this matter. Ning Xiyuan didn't show up for the entire day. Everyone knew without asking that she must be in seclusion to heal her injuries. Moreover, she had been injured in a single move in front of everyone, and it was embarrassing. Qi Huanji brought Ji Tianqing around the Qi residence, then led him to the east courtyard. The east courtyard was where he and a few of the Qi residence's direct descendants lived. Next to it was Tingfeng Garden. It was an elegant and luxuriously decorated courtyard, used to entertain distinguished guests. Ning Xiyuan and her guards lived in Tingfeng Garden. The 2 residences were 100 steps apart, and Qi Huanji had no intention of visiting. He was indeed heartless. When night fell, the Qi residence hosted a sumptuous banquet. This was a family banquet held in the main hall. Only the Qi residence's direct descendants, a few attendants, and Qi Tianlong's family were qualified to attend. The purpose of the family banquet was to welcome Ji Tianqing. At the same time, it was to let the Qi residence's direct descendants see Ji Tianqing with their own eyes. Qin Peipei personally went to invite Ning Xiyuan. As expected, Ning Xiyuan declined the invitation with the excuse of recuperating. At the family banquet, Qi Tianlong and his wife performed the duties of a host without losing their manners. The Qi residence's direct descendants reacted calmly, silently observing Ji Tianqing. No one applauded, and no one was foolish enough to criticize him. Only Qi Huanji was the happiest, and he was very active. Ji Tianqing's expression remained calm, neither servile nor overbearing. No matter how sumptuous the wine and delicacies were, he would stop after tasting them. After the family banquet, the Qi residents still didn't know him well enough. They felt that his identity was mysterious and his strength was unfathomable. The family banquet ended in the middle of the night. Slightly tipsy, Qi Huanji accompanied Ji Tianqing back to the east courtyard to rest. However, as soon as they stepped into the east courtyard, they saw a graceful figure standing outside Ji Tianqing's room. You're tuning into the Lee May's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.